Good morning, America. It's Robert McNeely with Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. Karoline Leavitt will hold a press briefing from the James S. Brady briefing room at 1 o'clock Eastern. So stay tuned with us as we analyze the day's news and a press briefing with the House leadership regarding this most recent shutdown. And we all know it's been quite an interesting debate. President Trump holding House leadership with hospitality. The leaders Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries visiting just 2 days ago, but they could not come to a consensus. Really, it's over this $1.5 trillion regarding health care for illegal aliens. Now, Republicans offered a clean CR, so we'll see the latest with Republican House leadership from today.
Well, good morning to everybody. We're going to be brief. The truth is very simple, and it's easy to articulate. I'll just point out that today we're here on the west front of the Capitol. We're overlooking the National Mall. It's a beautiful sight that a lot of the American people will not be able to experience today. On a normal day, of course, you have tens of thousands of visitors here, family, you have school groups that come and visit. They walk these grounds. We have about 7,000 people who visit this Capitol each and every day. But today that's not going to be the case. Today, America's boys and girls will walk up to these doors and they'll see something different, a sign that says closed until further notice. And that's because at midnight, the Democrats followed through on their threat to shut down the United States government. As we speak here this morning, there are hundreds of thousands of federal workers who are getting their furlough notices. Nearly half of our civilian workforce is being sent home. These are hardworking Americans who work for our federal government. Our troops and our Border Patrol agents will have to go to work, but they'll be working without pay. Food assistance, veterans benefits, and vital support for women and children are all coming to a halt. Now, thankfully, President Trump is trying to mitigate the damage as much as possible. His administration is working to limit the harm to the American people, but the longer this goes on, the more pain will be inflicted because it is inevitable when the government shuts down. The sad thing about it is that every single bit of this was entirely avoidable. Democrats could have worked with us in a bipartisan manner to avert this unnecessary and very harmful shutdown. But instead, they did something that is rather shocking to us. They prioritized taxpayer-funded benefits for illegal aliens over keeping the government open for American citizens. They themselves positioned that as a binary choice, and it's patently absurd. Listen to what the Democrats are demanding. They demanded, in exchange for our simple, clean, 24-page bipartisan continuing resolution, the same one that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats voted for just a few months back in March. In exchange for that, they rejected it, and they demanded something else. They wanted us to add over $1.5 trillion in new federal spending, paid for, of course, by hardworking American taxpayers, simply for funding the government at current Biden level spending levels. We are not going to do that. We can't do that. We won't do it. Almost 2 weeks ago, the House did our job. In the House, we passed a common sense, nonpartisan bill to keep the government open. Republicans did our job. We had one Democrat join us there, so it was bipartisan. But every other Democrat in the House voted to shut the government down. And last night, 44 Democrats in the Senate did the same thing. This is a clean resolution. It would simply buy Congress a few more weeks, 7 weeks, to finish the job. Why do we need that time? So that appropriators in both parties can finish their work. They've been restoring regular order. They've passed 12 separate bills out of committee in the House, and the Senate has done its work as well. 3 bills of the 12 passed in each chamber. They don't line up exactly, so there's a conference committee constituted, the first time in years that that's happened. We just need more time because we ran out of clock at the end of the fiscal year, September 30. This is very important to note. Democrats themselves have voted to pass a clean bipartisan CR just like this 13 times in the last few years. During the 4 years of the Biden administration, 13 times this happened. Republicans did the responsible thing, even when we were in the minority, to keep the government open. And today should be no different. There is nothing new in this legislation. There's no poison pill. There's no partisan tricks. There's no gimmicks whatsoever. The only difference today is the man who is sitting in the Oval Office. Rather than work with President Trump and Republicans to get this job done, as our party has done repeatedly in the same situation over the years, Democrats want to play political games with the lives and the livelihoods of Americans. The simple truth is Democrats in Congress have dragged our country into another reckless shutdown to satisfy their far-left base. That is the truth. Whether or not the government remains open or reopens is entirely up to them. There's still time for Democrats to pass this clean bipartisan bill that's sitting before them, and we encourage our Democrat colleagues to do that. I certainly pray they'll come to their senses soon and do the right and responsible thing. The reason they will have one more opportunity today is because of the sound leadership that is being provided in the U.S. Senate by our colleagues who are standing here with us. This is a joint press conference, as you know, between Republican leadership in the House and the Senate, and I'm delighted to yield to my good friend and an extraordinary leader in the Senate, Leader John Thune.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and our House colleagues for doing the work. You sent us a clean, continuing resolution. Unfortunately, we are here this morning in a government shutdown that the Democrats wanted. Chuck Schumer, at the behest of a bunch of liberal, far-left activist groups, has walked his Democrat colleagues into a boxed canyon. There's no way out, folks. There's no way out. This could have been avoided. It's totally unavoidable. And everybody's now asking the question, how does this end? Well, it ends when the Senate Democrats pick this bill up, passed by the House of Representatives, and vote for it. It's on the floor of the Senate. We're going to vote later this morning on this, 24 pages. Does this look partisan? Does this look dirty to you? 24 pages to fund the government. Nothing more, nothing less, nothing else. The House kept it simple. We kept it simple in the Senate. This is something, as the Speaker noted, that 13 times in the past Senate Democrats have done when they were in the majority and Joe Biden was in the White House. This is a very straightforward issue. It's not complicated. They want it to end. Vote with us to open up the government by voting this out of the Senate today, putting it on President Trump's desk, and he will sign it into law. President, House Republicans, Senate Republicans, we're all united on this. And what's interesting now is some of the Democrats are joining us. Our vote last night was a bipartisan vote. There were 3 Democrats that came over and voted with us because they know this strategy is a losing one, and it hurts the American people. It's not about who wins or who loses or who gets blamed in all this. It's about the American people. And they have taken the American people hostage in a way that they think benefits them politically, but at the consequence and the cost of what's going to happen to the American families if this government shutdown continues. And so I'm glad to be here with our Republican colleagues. Our Democrat colleagues in the House have been around here the last few days, I guess, flailing around, celebrating the fact that they voted to shut down the government. How ironic. Well, this can all end today, folks. It needs to end today. We will continue to work together with our House counterparts, with the President of the United States, to get this government open again on behalf of the American people. Next up is, there he is, the leader.
Thank you, Leader Thune. Today marks day 1 of the Schumer shutdown. As Speaker Johnson pointed out, this didn't need to happen. House Republicans came together weeks ago to prevent a government shutdown. We brought as straightforward of a bill as you can have to say, let's allow government to be funded for another 2 months while we negotiate our differences. Clearly, we have differences with Democrats right now. One of the Democrat leaders confirmed yesterday that Democrats shut the government down to fund health care for illegal aliens. That is no way to hold the American people hostage over some far-left demand. You know, we had an election in November where the country came together and said, let's send to Washington leaders who want to solve problems and get our country back on track. And we've been working feverishly to do that, to get this country back on track, to get the economy moving, to lower inflation, to lower interest rates. And Democrats, just to appease their far-left radical base, have been voting no every step of the way. Well, Today it has consequences because when Hakeem Jeffries whipped every Democrat to vote no and shut the government down, luckily in the House we only needed a majority vote and we were able to come together and do the right thing and get that bill over to the Senate. But as everybody knows in the Senate, you also need Democrats to come together with Republicans to get 60 votes. And so when Chuck Schumer made such a fatally flawed decision to shut the government down, ultimately the American people, I think, are going to get involved and demand that Chuck Schumer reverse course because it's not sustainable. The American people do not want to be held hostage to Chuck Schumer's radical demands to fund illegal health care and, oh, by the way, to cut and gut $50 billion out of rural hospitals. That's in the bill that Chuck Schumer filed as his alternative. That's outrageous. You want to talk about a partisan demand to hold the American people hostage? That's what Chuck Schumer's done. We have a bill that is clean, that just keeps these negotiations going for another 2 months while the government stays open. And all Chuck Schumer needs to do is get over the tantrum that he's having with the results of the election from November and vote yes to keep the government open. We are here ready to get the job done. Schumer needs to end his shutdown and finally join with us, and let's start real negotiations without holding the American people hostage. With that, I want to bring up my friend, the whip of the Senate, Whip Barrasso.
Well, today we're in the middle of the Schumer shutdown. The Democrats have caved in to the radical wing of the Democrat Party, caved in completely, abandoned the American people in the process. And why? Well, one of the reasons is Chuck Schumer wants to try to prove to somebody that he's more liberal than AOC. Yesterday in the Senate floor, the cracks started to appear in the Democrat base. 3 Democrats voted with the Republicans to prevent a shutdown. And why? Because they know the American people are hurt when the government shuts down. We hurt our military, who may be without pay. We hurt our veterans, who may not get health care. Today, the Senate is going to vote again and give the Democrats an opportunity to open the government by passing the continuing resolution, to give us 7 weeks to do the appropriations process, to get the government open again. That's what the American people want. It's what the American people deserve. And today we'll see how many Democrats vote with us to end the Schumer shutdown. And now the whip of the House of Representatives, Tom Emmer.
A government shutdown serves no one. Government shutdowns unleash chaos on federal workers, delay pay for service members, and weaken our position on the global stage. To hold these people hostage instead of just letting them do their jobs is so wrong. These aren't my words. These are the words of congressional Democrats over the last 6 years. I hope that they will listen to their own advice for once. Let's be clear about how we got here. Republicans did our job. We did the right and reasonable thing by passing a nonpartisan, clean CR to keep the government open while we work to return the appropriation process to regular order. The reason the government is shut down this morning is because the Democrats decided they would rather hold our government hostage and issue a $1.5 trillion ransom note of radical demands and then instead of joining us as we try to govern. Make no mistake, their top priority is not fighting for Americans' health care. Their top priority is picking a fight with President Trump and scoring political points with their far-left base in the process. The American people aren't fools, however, and they won't be used as pawns in this ridiculous game. To my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, it's not too late. you can still do the responsible thing by passing our clean CR in the Senate and sending it to President Trump's desk immediately. The time for staged photo ops, selfies, and scripted talking points is over. The time for deliberate action is now. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chairman Cotton, our honorary Minnesotan.
Well, I want to thank Speaker Johnson and House Republicans for doing their job, passing a simple, straightforward funding bill to keep the government open for 7 weeks. But here we are in a Schumer shutdown. And why are we in a Schumer shutdown? I think we all know the answer to that. Because Chuck Schumer is scared of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And Chuck Schumer is scared of his radical left-wing base. That's why we're in the Schumer shutdown. How do we get out of it? Again, let's be clear. As President Trump, Speaker Johnson, and Senator Thune have been, the Democrats need to pass the House's 7-week funding bill. Until then, there's nothing to negotiate. There's no compromises to be had. There's no gangs. There's no back channels. There's another vote today in the Senate. And Senate Democrats will hopefully do the right thing. And if they don't today, then they'll have another chance later this week and next week, and as long as it takes until the Senate passes the House bill. That's the way we will end this needless Schumer shutdown. I now welcome Chairwoman McClain.
Well, good morning, everybody. Let me put this as plainly as I can. House Republicans voted to keep the government open with a clean CR. Period. End of conversations. No gimmicks, no partisan demands, and yet all but one House Democrat voted no. All but one voted to shut our government down. And why? Because Democrats would rather shovel $1.5 trillion of your hard-earned money into radical projects. Handouts for illegals and climate schemes in foreign countries. Now just think about that for 1 minute. Millions of Americans got up before dawn this morning and will put in 8, 9, 10 hours today and get a paycheck. But you know what? That paycheck is theirs. And Democrats want to waste their paychecks. Listen, Democrats can hold all the press conferences they want. They can spin and lie all day long. But a press conference won't open the government. The only thing that will is passing the clean, common sense bill that that Republicans have delivered. And I will close with this. The radical Democrats want to use your hard-earned money to fund radical programs. They want to use your hard-earned money to give illegal immigrants free government benefits. And I would say, Chuck Schumer, you might want to check with Maxine Waters because she doesn't think that's a lie. And what do Democrats want to do? They want to use your money to fund climate change in foreign countries, all while taking away money from our rural hospitals. This is not wrong. It's plain insulting. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend, Shelley Moore Capito.
Well, I'm the cleanup hitter here, and a privilege to be here with the leadership of the House, the Speaker, and others, and the leadership here in the Senate. The resounding theme that I've heard today is hijack and hostage. The American people are being held hostage, and the process has been totally hijacked. We've heard repeatedly how simple, how nonpartisan, how easy the bill that Leader Thune has shown us today in terms of keeping the government open, how easy that is to vote for, to give us the 7 weeks while we work out our differences. But not only am I on leadership, I'm also on the Senate Appropriations Committee. The process of appropriating has been hijacked. And that's fine for the Democrats, because last year Chuck Schumer did not put one single appropriations bill on the Senate floor. Our leader has put 3 on the Senate floor, and our committee has passed 8 bills out of appropriations. That's the process to get the will of the American people, where their priorities are, where they want to see us as a nation go with spending their hard-earned tax dollars. So while we have held hostage the American people to keep them from doing things that they like touring the Capitol or accessing benefits or the services that are provided by our federal government, they've also hijacked a process that we need to have in order to demonstrate to the American people what we promised them in this election and what President Trump promised them. We're going to go back to regular order. We're going to appropriate the dollars. We're going to be fully transparent. And we're not going to ride on some continuing resolution that spends like President Biden wanted to spend. We're going to put our own imprint on this for the American people. That's what they wanted when they voted us in, and that's what we want to give them. Thank you.
I want to thank all the senators for being here with us and the House leadership team. These folks have worked very hard. I really appreciate that context that Chairwoman Moore Capito just added here, reminding everyone that this has been a bipartisan process. The appropriators are doing their work. Republicans are in charge of Congress in both chambers, and we are returning the work of Congress back to regular order. But it takes time to do that. We have to rebuild muscle memory. As noted, Chuck Schumer didn't do that process at all. And so it's hard work. It takes a lot of time on the calendar, and all we're asking for is a little extra time. We took the liberty this morning to play the highlight reel of everything our Democrat colleagues have said for the last several decades about shutdowns. Use their own words. We'll roll that out, and it'll be in the hallway for you later today. You can see that as well. To remind everyone that they always said that shutting the government down would be dangerous, destructive, selfish, and irresponsible. And suddenly now they've changed their tune. Don't buy it. The American people are not buying it. Chuck Schumer was reminded of a New York Times poll that came out yesterday. 65% of respondents are saying to the Democrats, do not shut the government down if you don't get what you want. I think that number is going to rise dramatically as the pain increases, and it is the pain that they have caused. We'll take a few questions. Yes, the House will be returning next week, and they would be here this week, except that we did our work. We passed the bill almost 2 weeks ago out of the House and sent it to the Senate. The ball is literally in Chuck Schumer's court, so he determines that. Now, as you all know, today and tomorrow we recognize the Yom Kippur, the Jewish high holiday, so that's always traditionally a day that Congress doesn't work. We respect that tradition. And so Friday would have been the first legislative day in the House, but there is nothing truly that we can do much on the floor while the lights are almost literally out here. We have to open the government. The first, the simplest, the most important job of Congress is keeping the government working for the people. All the Democrats have always said that until this week. Yes. Well, I don't know. I've talked to one of them on the phone, okay? We have open dialogue all the time, but here's the simple fact. There isn't anything we can do to make this bill any better for them. We literally did not put one single partisan provision in the bill. There's no policy writers, there's no gimmicks and no tricks. Now, we could have done that. I had a lot of colleagues that wanted us to load this up with our priorities, but the leaders decided that we should do this in good faith, simply to buy more time, again, for the appropriations process to work. That's all this is. So there's nothing to negotiate. There's nothing that we can pull out of this bill to make it any leaner or cleaner than it is. It's absolutely sparkling clean, and it's only 24 pages long, okay? We're carrying it around as an exhibit. You've all read it, I hope. Everybody can read this. It's very, very simple, and it's not much more to it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. This is an extraneous matter right now. What the Democrats are doing is trying to grab a red herring. They're trying to bring in a December policy decision, which, by the way, is expiring because they themselves, the Democrats, put that into law. They had the expiration date set by themselves. But that is not a decision that has to be made until the end of the year, December 31. They're trying to bootstrap that and bring it into this very simple, very clean decision of a September funding stopgap. Don't buy it. They're grasping at straws because they want to have something to argue. They're claiming that Republicans are hurting health care. You should go read Chuck Schumer's counterproposal for the CR. We have a clean CR. They have a dirty CR, okay? And one of the reasons it's so dirty is because they wanted to cut $50 billion from the rural hospital fund that we all work so hard to put into the American taxpayers' tax cut, American families' tax cut, because the One Big Beautiful Bill handled that. Now, there's something that you might want to think about. Why do they want to cut $50 billion from rural hospitals? Because many of them, most of them, are in red states. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but I can't figure out any other reason they would argue for that. And by the way, if they care so much about health care for the American people, they would not shut the government down. Because you know what stopped today, among the other important programs and services, is women, infants, and children's nutrition programs. They have stopped sustenance for people, health care for veterans, medical services, mental health services, all the things that people rely upon. FEMA. How many of you know we're in the middle of hurricane season? There's 2 off the coast of the U.S. right now. They have stalled the work of FEMA, and they have prevented people from renewing or getting new flood insurance programs right now in the middle of this. It's dangerous, it is destructive, and it's unconscionable to us that Chuck Schumer should do this and would do this for his personal political reasons. How long, the only question that we'll leave you with this morning is, how long will the Democrats allow Chuck Schumer to drive them off this cliff? Every single American needs to ask that question. Thanks for being here this morning.
Well done.
And the proof is in the pudding. Just as said by leadership, the Democrats have the dirty CR. They want to take $50 million away from the rural hospitals. But then they're claiming in turn that somehow they can't work together. But we have the photos that we'll show you momentarily after thanking allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Now with 25% off ivermectin mebendazole, and also an additional code RSBN 10%, because this is really what you need to protect you and your family when it comes to the fall flu season. It's ivermectin, it's mebendazole, now 25% off, in addition to the extra 10% off that we have been running with code RSBN 10. Scan that QR code now, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You may have heard the news out of Florida as well, that cancer research and treatments really breaking ground in the free Sunshine State. In addition to that, the Presidential Library and Museum of President Trump will be in Miami. So lots of news coming out of Florida, but especially relating to your health. This is the go-to online pharmacy of professional doctors and nurses, healthcare providers, pharmacists who want to get through the red tape. If you do not have insurance, it doesn't matter. Just no red tape, no bureaucracy, simply getting life-saving, affordable medication to your doorstep. Again, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Scan that QR code there for RSBN 10, 10% off now at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And Monetary Gold, a fantastic organization focused on wealth, security, preservation. Grab your complimentary presidential gold guide today. Call today. Do not delay. 888-617-7994. Ask how you can eliminate your annual IRA fees permanently and for life. RSBNforthegold.com. Robert Kiyosaki, friends with President Trump, and author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, talks extensively on this, that with the weakening dollar around the world and the BRICS nations, you have to diversify your income and your savings. The best way to do that, gold, silver, hot commodities that have been precious metals standing the test of time for the last 5,000 years of human history. Monetary Gold is the best in the business. And again, now you can grab that complimentary presidential gold guide to find out what's best for you and yours at home. RSBNforthegold.com. AngelPaste.com, the miracle that is out of Spring, Texas, off the Gulf of America. You have seen me use the Vitamin B Miracle Cream, the original, non-GMO, no chemical, this time of year as well. The orange option, vitamin C infused. It's just a fantastic product. In fact, they have countless products at angelpaste.com. Take the trip today to look over what they have to offer. They are Christian-owned. They hire veterans. And again, they're based out of Spring, Texas in the Lone Star State. Angelpaste.com. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history as we are awaiting a press briefing with Karoline Leavitt. She will hold that from the James S. Brady briefing room at the White House in the West Wing at 1 o'clock Eastern. So stay tuned with us as we cover today's news and everything happening inside and outside of the Beltway for you, the American people. And President Trump continues to have fun with cut number one, Mr. Producer. Hakeem Jeffries doing the media trip, but again, that mariachi band seems to be following him around.
It's a disgusting video, and we're going to continue to make clear bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented Republican.
And we saw that Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader, and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer also meeting with President Trump. If we can run through those double box pictures, Mr. Producer, right there. Well, they seem to be supporting President Trump for running for re-election. I thought they were saying that the 22nd Amendment doesn't allow that. So I'm not sure why they graciously accepted those Trump 2028 hats that you could find in the White House gift shop. It seems there is hope and light at the end of the tunnel. It seems as if they are coming around and coming to common sense like the rest of the American people, supporting the 45th and 47th Commander-in-Chief. And how ornate and how lovely is the West Wing and specifically the Golden Office with all of that gold, 20-plus portraits of presidents and fair leaders of this amazing constitutional republic that has stood the test of time. And at the bottom of the hour, we'll take a quick commercial break for sponsors. We'll be right back with you here at Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. Karoline Leavitt will hold a press briefing at 1 o'clock Eastern. We're happy to join you on this gorgeous day in Washington, D.C. And it is a lovely day in the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama. A fantastic time of year. Happy October, happy fall harvest as we get ready for what is going to be the conclusion of a grand year, a difficult year in many ways, but a year that's leading into the golden era of 250 years of the American constitutional republic, this amazing experiment. Momentarily from now, we'll also have a very special guest joining Right Side Broadcasting Network. And again, today, some hard-cutting questions and good analysis from our guests today as we await for Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing at 1 o'clock today. The big news is the fact that this shutdown has happened. If you've been watching since the top of the hour, you caught joint House and Senate Republican leadership coming together to hold a press conference from the Capitol Hill steps. So let's run you through some of what takes place with a shutdown. It's the fact that schools, people can't come in. It's very sad to see that, including museums and libraries, but you usually get a lot of scare tactics from the opposite party when it comes to these shutdowns. And joining us now is congressional candidate in Iowa's 2nd District, former Iowa State Representative Joe Mitchell. How are you, sir?
Bobby, good to be on here. How are you?
Oh, pleasure. Oh, doing very well, my friend. Thanks for joining us today. And we're thinking about very amazing topics happening here this week. Of course, President Trump always making the headlines. What do you think about this peace proposal that he has pushed forward for Israel and Gaza, and Hamas now has roughly 48 hours or so to make a decision on what the Americans and the Israelis are putting forward?
Well, Bobby, there's never been anything like this. And if, you've seen what's happened over the past few decades, we've had horrific decision in the Middle East after horrific decision. And President Trump just came in, and he's the only person that could have done this, by the way. But he's brought together two completely different sides to create this deal. And so I think you're going to have peace in the Middle East for the first time in a long time because of what the president did and how he handles these guys. I mean, he makes sure that Netanyahu talks to these other leaders like we've never seen before. And so I think you're going to see a historic peace deal done. I do believe that, and the president's the only person that could have done that. And by the way, we wouldn't be in this place right now if it wasn't for President Biden. If we would have had President Trump for the last 4 years, we wouldn't have been in this place. But I think he's going to get it done, and I have all the confidence in the world that he will.
Oh, there's no question about that, Joe. And we see that the keyboard warriors going haywire online, claiming that this is Israel's fault. And while two wrongs don't make a right, my goodness gracious, we still have 48 hostages, whether dead or alive, we do not know, that we are demanding back on the American and Israeli side. But these were innocent concert goers from all over the world, namely Americans and Israelis and people of the Jewish faith that were targeted because of anti-Semitism, because of hate. And we've known since the foundation of the state of Israel since 1948, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, these radical terrorist groups, including ISIS and the Taliban, have had that siren song to destroy the West and to kill Jews. And it's a terrible thing that we have to live with. And sometimes we see it on our college campuses.
Well, and it's unacceptable. October 7th is coming up, one of the most horrific days in history. And they talk about a genocide. October 7th was a genocide. And you have to make sure that these hostages get back. And it's ridiculous that there's still so many hostages that are there. But President Trump, that's what he said. He said, we're drawing a red line in the sand, and we're going to make sure to get these hostages back. Thank God most of the American hostages have been released over the last, 6 months to 9 months because of the president. But ultimately, it's like, these Hamas terrorists can't be in charge, and they're not a real government. They're not legitimate. And, that's what the president said. So, I think what he's done has been incredible and almost an impossible situation, by the way. Like I said, no one else could have done that. But, we have to remember what happened on October 7th and make sure that never happens again.
And God be with the Jewish people. We pray for the peace of Israel as commanded to us by the Bible. But what do you think about this shutdown as well in the government? You're looking to represent Congress from the 2nd Congressional District in Iowa. An exciting time for a young person like you, Joe, to get in the ring, as most of us should be thinking about that. How can we serve better? How can we do better for our neighbors in our community come 2026? It seems as if the Democrats have brought this on to themselves.
Well, we call it the Schumer shutdown, Bobby. That's what we call it, is the Schumer shutdown, because Chuck Schumer's the one leading the shutdown. It's not the president. The president wants the government to continue. He wants to continue to fund and, pay people and do all these things. But Chuck Schumer shutting it down because he wants to make sure that illegal immigrants, not legal immigrants, not American citizens, but illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, have health care. It's absolutely ridiculous. And they don't want to cut any funding, by the way. They want to continue to spend like drunken sailors, and it's not sustainable. You can't do that. And so, the president wants fiscal responsibility, but also he wants to make sure that we're not giving welfare benefits to illegal immigrants. You can't do that as a country. And if you do that, you're going to be bankrupt. And so that's what the president knows. And he's holding the line. And everyone knows it, by the way. They know that it's not the president. They know it's not congressional Republicans that are holding up, the continuing resolution. It's Chuck Schumer and it's Jeffries. And so, we have to make sure that people know that. I just tweeted about it earlier that it's the Schumer shutdown, which everyone needs to know. And, the president's holding the line as he should. And we're going to make sure that these illegals don't have health care benefits. It's ridiculous.
What are your thoughts on the warrior ethos and what Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and the president hope to bring back, as they called leaders in the military from around the world, top generals and admirals, to have a discussion yesterday at the Marine base in Quantico?
Well, there's been no better secretary ever to lead our Department of Defense, or what we call it now Department of War, which is much more fitting, by the way, because we have to make sure that we're prepared for war and ready for it. And that's actually how, ironically, you maintain peace. And that's what Pete Hegseth has talked about. And he's done a great job. And by the way, he talked about, he's like, you can't have these fat generals and DEI related, policies in place for the military. He's absolutely right. It's like, how can you, as a leader, how can you be the leader of these forces and be overweight? You can't do 5 push-ups, and you're supposed to be commanding the largest, most lethal military in the world. Is absolutely ridiculous. So I think what Hegseth has done is absolutely great, and it's probably the first time we've seen something like that, since Eisenhower or Patton, probably in almost a century. So it's been good to see that and see the change, and President Trump's fully behind him, and I'll be fully behind him in Congress, by the way, and we'll push to make sure that the military is strong and lethal and can protect us, because that's what they're there for. They're there to protect the American people, not to push DEI initiatives.
Well, thank God for that. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Joe, because that's what I called the speech yesterday. It was truly the Patton moment for the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth. And, thanks be to God to people like Secretary Noem, as well as DHS, any uniformed guard or people that are willing to lay down their lives for their brother and sister is just a fantastic example of love for this country and love for their fellow man. And we know, at least through this shutdown, and God willing, this does end today, as the Senate will get together this afternoon. But like you said, the Schumer shutdown continuing, at least our ICE officers will be paid during this furlough period. We will wait and see how long this does go on. But it's a big part of Health and Human Services and throughout the government to make it healthy once again. And we also saw that yesterday from the president, Secretary Kennedy, Doctors McCary, as well as Mehmet Oz. With Pfizer, it looks like these big drug companies will start making our pharmaceuticals here, and in turn actually reduce the cost of those patients here right at home.
Well, and this is the issue, is we've had these huge conglomerates, these multinational billion-dollar companies that have been ripping us off for so many years and charging us much higher prices than anybody else in the world. We've been subsidizing Europe and all these other places in the world. And, President Trump called out the BS, and he said, we're not going to do that anymore. And by the way, we have the leverage on these guys, so that's why he said it. And he said, and if you're going to charge us prices that are ridiculous, by the way, you're going to make sure to build things in America. We're going to create things in America. And that's across the spectrum, by the way. That's not just pharmaceutical companies. But, Pfizer, what they've done, with the COVID shot, all these things, was really horrendous. And so it's about time they start giving back to this country and making sure that they're developing, designing, and manufacturing, these drugs here in America, giving us jobs, but also making sure that, they treat us fairly, because they haven't treated us fairly for a long time. And President Trump is making sure that there's transparency there, which is important, but also making sure that we're going to reduce drug costs for Americans and we're not going to subsidize the rest of the world.
Definitely a national security issue on so many fronts, financially to the health of this great nation. Now, Joe, if you could share the place we met, it was all through Turning Point USA and the late, great Charlie Kirk. So some of your reflections on his life, his legacy, and Run Gen Z, the organization you founded to encourage young people like yourself to throw their hat in the ring.
Right. Well, Bobby, it's been a terrible last few weeks, obviously, with our friend Charlie Kirk being brutally murdered in cold blood. But if you can believe it, I met Charlie Kirk September 10th, 2019. Think about that date. 6 years ago to the date that he was killed, I met him in Iowa. And he was at a Truth and Freedom conference he was speaking at. And I met him there and was connected with him. And we hit it off immediately. And we spent about 2 or 3 hours together after the event and talked about young people getting involved, young people running for office, how I won my race. And, ultimately he started inviting me to this Turning Point USA events, is where I met you. And we met, I believe, December of 2019 at the SAS conference in West Palm Beach. And I told you, Bobby, if you remember, I said, Bobby, we got to start this group called Run Gen Z. And, Bobby, I got to say, you were the first person outside of Charlie and Tyler Boyer that started helping me on the Run Gen Z concept. So I got to thank you for that. But, we started thinking about Run Gen Z and getting these young conservatives to run for state and local office. And what we did over the last 6 years, we built this incredible organization where now we have hundreds of young people that will be running in 2026. We have over 150 state and local representatives, city council people, school board members that are now involved and elected already under the age of 30 that are involved with Run Gen Z. They're mentoring the next generation. And so that was a direct correlation because of Charlie. And if it wasn't for Charlie, we wouldn't have started that organization. There's so many different stories like that about Charlie. And, the last message I sent to Charlie, Bobby, was on September 7th of this year, about a month ago. And I sent him my press release for my congressional run because I had saw Charlie in about mid-August at his investor retreat in Colorado. And he said, Joe, you got to run for Congress. We got to have this next generation of leaders that's in D.C. And I sent him my press release the night before I released it. And I was talking to his team the day before on September 9th about having Charlie in Iowa and doing a big rally with them and getting his endorsement. I'm the only person in Iowa, by the way, that Charlie's ever endorsed in a race. And, then he gets shot, brutally murdered on September 10th. And what that's taught us all is we have to stand up. We have to speak boldly. We have to speak the truth. And we have to make sure that people know what's happening in this country. And the political violence has to stop. And these radical left lunatics have to stop calling people Nazis and fascists. And we have to have, dialogue and discussion with people. You can't have, violence. And so ultimately, we're running hard on the campaign trail. I think Charlie would be proud of the campaign we've ran. And I think I sent to you this morning, we raised $400,000 in our first quarter, which is a record in the state of Iowa, by the way. And we did it in 3 weeks. So I say we raised a record amount in record time, if you can believe that. So we raised a lot of money, and it's the most ever in the state. And we're going to raise even more in the fourth quarter this year, our second quarter raising. And so we feel really good about the race. If people want to learn more, by the way, about the campaign, they can go to joemitchell.com to learn more about us. But we'd love to have your support.
Well, congratulations so far, my friend. It's amazing work you have done on a daily basis to make this country great again. And it's so true, as now millennials and Gen Z voters, our generations truly make up the vast majority of the electorate than our elders. So it is time for those reins to be passed, if you will, for lack of a better term, to those younger people, because this is what we're inheriting, $36 trillion of debt, a world that's very dangerous. And I think we saw from the last administration how when you allow corrupt leadership to lead the nation, for lack of a better term, they might take it down the wrong road. And I'm amazed by nearly 250 days into this new administration, how much has been uncovered and how much truth has been told. Joe Mitchell, candidate for 2nd Congressional District in the great state of Iowa. Come back and see us soon, very soon.
Bobby, anytime. It was a pleasure. Talk to you soon.
And as we covered the latest from the Trump White House, inside and outside of the Beltway and Congress, as the Schumer shutdown continues, Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing at 1 o'clock this afternoon. Our thanks to Joe Mitchell, running for the 2nd Congressional District in Iowa. Kalshi.com/RSBN, your go-to for trading on just about anything in America. Who will win that Nobel Peace Prize? I think President Trump is at the top of the list. He said in his speech, well, they'll probably give it to someone else for doing nothing. We're talking the ending of 7 wars in roughly 8 months. How about Zelensky and Putin? Will they meet before January? Will it be bilateral or trilateral? We will stay on that story as President Trump has pursued peace, not only with Israel and Gaza, as we saw this week, but also dating back to August 15th with the Peace Summit in Anchorage, Alaska. How about the Chicago Cubs, who won yesterday? They have their game today. It's the wild card of October baseball now underway throughout this great land of ours. Who will win the World Series? Will the Los Angeles Dodgers repeat the championship? So it's music, it's sports, culture, and politics, everything that affects the American ethos. Kalshi.com/RSBN. CovePure.com/RSBN, your go-to reverse osmosis machine that's the size of a coffee maker. You see it there. It sits right on that kitchen counter, that tabletop. That's the first thing you should do outside of your morning prayer is grab an ice cold or lukewarm or even hot cup of water, H2O, to clean out that system to get your day started. Now, Utah, Florida, being 2 states among others that are looking to get the fluoride and the contamination out of the water. They did so with legislation. We'll see who else follows as Secretary Kennedy going around the country, meeting with governors to make America healthy again. JAMA Pediatrics doing a study with their doctors and scientists and finding that children, students drinking out of the tap water on a regular basis can lose up to 2 points or more of their IQ from doing so. So protect your family, protect your gut, protect what matters most. Drink pure, live pure. Get $200 off covepure.com/RSBN. Scan that QR code right now for all of those details. So very important in this day and time, as we know fluoride is in the water, agricultural runoff, pesticides, and also hormone blockers like birth control. Can you believe that that would happen? But the water treatment facilities don't get everything out of the tap water. So again, covepure.com/RSBN, $200 off their clear water technology, removing 99.9% of impurities out of your tap water. You can see how easy it is to use per the video there, covepure.com/RSBN. As it's 11:52 on the East Coast, 8:52 on the Golden West Coast. The sun is shining on the 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, your house, your White House, where your executive government gets the work done. President Trump did not want this shutdown, but the Palestinian senator from New York clearly did. Let's take a quick commercial break for sponsorships. We'll be right back with you on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings. Regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, King's only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. Roughly 1 hour from now, Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, the superstar, as President Trump puts it, to hold a press briefing at 1 o'clock Eastern. So be here with us right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, your go-to live desk that provides you with talking to the people that are involved in the federal government inside and outside of the Beltway, so you can see just what's happening during this Schumer shutdown. Now, President Trump has had a lot of fun with this, as he does through humor, and we played earlier, but we'll play again. Cut 1, Mr. Producer. Why is Hakeem Jeffries doing interviews with the mariachi bands following him all over the place?
It's a disgusting video, and we're going to continue to make clear bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented Republican assault.
But we know, even with the fun and the jest, the Democrats will do anything other than keep the government open. A video to play for you, cut 7, Mr. Producer, that they are very focused on literally running away from just about anything. And we have actual footage for you from the halls of Congress.
Early worm gets the worm. Do not talk to me until I have had my coffee. Just pooping, you know how I be. I'm hungry.
Michael ate an entire family-sized chicken pot pie for lunch.
He's on a sales call.
To you! No work! No work! Here are some downloaded peaceful sounds. That one makes me think of death. How can I be productive if I have this one little thing in my brain that I cannot get out? And that one little thing is a soft pretzel. Oh, wow, okay. All right, let's all go home.
All joking aside, that is how these Democrats in Washington, D.C. seem to act with the Schumer shutdown taking place. Although with the pictures we showed earlier, 2 through 4, Mr. Producer, they seem to be supporting President Trump in 2028. They had a good meeting with House and Senate leadership, both Republican and Democrat, but they chose their favorite gifts from the gift shop, and they want President Trump to run for re-election. Seemingly, of course, the Palestinian Senator Chucky Schumer, always welcome to talk about that here at the network, and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. It seems as if this party is really becoming a regional party of New York and California, because the rest of the country seems to have a very common sense approach to wanting to keep the government open and believes the fact that you paying into Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, among other benefits that you've worked so hard for with your savings, your retirement, why do they want to give $1.5 trillion to illegal aliens? Why do they want to cut funding for rural hospitals? You saw the press conference with House Republican leadership on both sides, Senate and the House of Representatives, speaking to that fact in Congress, that they had a clean CR to keep the government open for 7 more weeks. And these very same officials, including Senate Minority Leader Schumer, spoke to this going back to 2012, 2013 to keep the government open. It's really an amazing thing in this day and age, and quite a tactic they're using to hold the American people hostage. Well, we have big news out of Florida today. Last week, the state just announcing a $60 million investment into cancer research. What a great day for America. What makes this different, though, is they're focusing on affordable proven medications like ivermectin, which has been prescribed for over 40 years now. The problem is some do not want to prescribe it, thanks to Big Pharma and thanks to the special interests that are rooted in the federal city. But now 25% off ivermectin, mebendazole, and through allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, you can scan that QR code there now for 10% off, code RSBN10, that we have been running for the last couple of weeks here at the network. That's where All Family Pharmacy comes into play. It's no red tape, no bureaucracy, no insurance necessary, just a pharmaceutical note for you and yours to protect your family with essential medications, NAD+, to methylene blue, again, ivermectin, mebendazole, to over 200 essential medications, including emergency medical kits that can keep you and yours safe and vibrant in this fall flu season. So ivermectin, mebendazole, now 25% off, a great deal. I hope you caught our special a couple of weeks ago with Michael Kunzler, the co-owner, along with David McCary, the chief pharmacist at allfamilypharmacy.com. This is the way of the future, online pharmacies, and they care about you, and they believe in the right to try. They believe in affordable health care and affordable prescriptions, just as President Trump has worked so hard for. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, your go-to. Additionally, scan the QR code there. Find all the information out that you can get 25% off ivermectin, mebendazole, and 10% off with code RSBN10 that we've been running now for a couple of weeks here on the program. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. 1 hour from now, the superstar has a press conference as Karoline Leavitt will go to her at that time. But we are joined by Jim Paff, a friend of the show, president of the Conservative Caucus. And Jim, with your expertise on Capitol Hill, we're in the middle of the Schumer shutdown. Where do we go from here? Do you think the Senate will finally address this and get over that filibuster threshold this afternoon?
Well, the only way for that to happen is for Democrats to break, of course, because we have the cloture rule, that requires a 60-vote threshold to get bills moving through the Senate. That vote failed 55-45 last night, and you're going to have to get 5 Democrats to come on board. I know that John Thune was talking about the fact that they've had discussions with Democrats who might be a little concerned with the situation, so who knows what can break, but I don't see it happening anytime soon. This could be a couple weeks or more before this gets resolved.
And where do you think they stand here in regards to, they want roughly $1.5 trillion for illegal aliens for health care. This is one of the cleanest CRs I've ever seen. Usually government really tries to add in as much of those pet projects and the pork barrel spending, as the late Senator John McCain used to talk about, spending like drunken sailors. We just had a congressional candidate on from Iowa using that very term. Why are these Democrats so upset with what seems to be a good thing, keeping the government open for an additional 7 weeks? And in turn, they only seem to want to keep it open when their team, their squad, is in the White House.
Well, they've been used to Republicans folding consistently whenever we come to these battles. You know, I was working on Capitol Hill in 2013 when that, I think, 19-day or multiple-day close down happened. I wasn't there in 2019. But in every one of these pinch points when they come across, Republicans have been the ones that have folded. And they're not folding this time. There are 2 interesting things that have happened that are, to me, kind of amazing. The first one is what you've talked about, actually having a clean CR or something very, very close to that. That, you know, Republicans have been willing to tack things on and move forward, even with Democrat demands right in front of them. And of course, these were in the days of John Boehner and Paul Ryan, who were just 2 horrible speakers of the House. They really caved in constantly, and their constituency under them caved in the House and Senate. and Mitch McConnell as well too. But that's one difference that is heartening. The other thing that was actually very strong, in my opinion, is something I've been talking about for years. I wish they would do at these times, which is the House passed this clean CR, relatively clean CR, and then they walked away. They left and didn't come back and left it to the Senate to figure out. Now, that has not harmed Republicans in the Senate at this stage. It's harmed Democrats. I mean, Chuck Schumer is looking horrible, and Democrats in general, in the minds of Americans right now, because there was a real opportunity, a clear distinction. The reason Republicans are holding together so strongly, in my opinion, is Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump is willing to have this fight with them and say we can't be playing around with stuff. And there's something else happening that might be very good in terms of procedure, and maybe not in terms of the spending that's taking place. The reason that they're looking to do this CR is because Republicans, for the first time since 1998, are seriously working to pass all 12 appropriations bills. And I won't try to go through all the details of what those bills are, but what it is the 12 areas of government spending that back in the Budget Control Act of 1974, they set up as a way to try to move appropriations more cleanly through Congress. It's been since 1998 that all 12 of those bills have been passed. We have been operating under continuing resolutions since that time. And it's a horrible way to do legislation. But in this case, there might be a chance to break at least that procedural problem moving forward. The bad news is that those 12 appropriations bills probably aren't going to cut spending back to where I'd like it to go or where Republicans should demand that it goes. But that's the situation we've been in, and it's honestly been 4 people writing the bills in conjunction with the lobbyists since 1998. The Speaker of the House and then the minority leader in the House and the majority and minority leaders in the Senate. That's literally the way we've been writing spending. And lo and behold, $37 trillion later, after we should have had the debt paid off in 2013, that was the projection in 2000, here we are. But it is a positive move relative to where we've been thus far. And Donald Trump's taking all the right steps, including what may be happening next while the government is shut down.
Very interesting to see all of this taking place. I can remember my former congressman from the 6th District of Illinois, Peter Roskam, someone I have a deep amount of respect for. But going back to constituents, to your point, Jim, saying that I had to vote for the Obama omnibus bill to give trillions and trillions more to the executive branch to spend willy-nilly because House leadership, they ran the show. So it would go both ways. And I can remember even in fables like The American President, that extraordinary film written by Aaron Sorkin, specifically with the gun bill that took place in 1994, even prior to this 1998 CR practice, that you had staff on the phone screaming at people in the same party saying, come on to this bill. So you actually got an opportunity to see through film how the bacon is made, as they say. Now, what do you think about this week with President Trump? Because breaking news and historical prowess for peace potentially between America, Israel, proposing this to Hamas. Do you think that they will agree to something like this? Because it was really an extraordinary proposal when you read it.
Well, if it's ever going to happen, it's this current arrangement. And at present, as far as I understand, Hamas is the only holdout. You have got, for the first time that I can think of, a significant effort on the Arab states in the region, except for Iran, obviously, trying to press Hamas to buy into this deal. Now, previous peace deals in the region related to Israel have had some participation from the Arab states around, but in the era of the Abraham Accords, it is really remarkable and significant that the Arab states not only are participating strongly in this process, but are providing significant support in the construct of this, which goes against what the tendency has been in the region, where you would have the Arab states ganging up on Israel to try to push them off into a corner that they couldn't easily get themselves out of. That has changed. There is a new way of thinking. Donald Trump is the main reason for that. And in fact, if this deal comes through, it's the 8th argument for him to get the Nobel Peace Prize, and deservedly so. So do I think it will happen? I don't know. I mean, I think Hamas is going to be intransigent, but the two main factors are, one, what I've already talked about, the Arab states' participation. They're pushing Hamas hard to take this. But the second factor is that Hamas's leadership has been decimated over the recent months because of what's going on in Gaza and other efforts related to the Gaza war. And they're not as strong as they used to be from a leadership perspective to stand firm. So hopefully this will come through. If it does, and if it does under the construct that's been put together and that regime holds, it could bring an amazing amount of peace to the region and possibly let Gaza go on that path that Donald Trump's been talking about, where it could really build great wealth and great opportunity. Hamas could have done that after the 2006 agreement that gave them the ability to rule in Gaza, and all they did was squander it so that they can continue off this evil, murderous plan to try to destroy Israel.
And it's roughly coming up to the 2-year anniversary of that October 7th. And I'm amazed, even I see the keyboard warriors online blaming Israel for all of this. And it's really quite sad, because has Israel hit back hard? Absolutely, considering the history. But you can date back, am I wrong in saying, from 1948, since the inception of the state of Israel post World War II, really a creation out of the United Nations and of Great Britain, with that idea to put the Jewish people in their native land, because they are really the true Palestinians who were first there. We've seen time and again 5 major different peace accords prior to that of even Jimmy Carter, and the peace accords at Camp David between Israel and Egypt. These folks, it's literally the size of the scale of New Jersey, surrounded by traditional enemies, but we've really seen a change in that ever since the Abraham Accords.
Yeah, the reason we call it Palestine is because after the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70, the Jews were either murdered or kicked out of the land, and it was called Judea up to that point, and they renamed it Palestine, and that name has stuck roughly ever since, at least as a regional designation. Listen. I'm not reflexively pro-Israel in the sense that they can do no wrong. I don't think they can do no wrong. And I don't even necessarily believe that everything that's happened with the Gaza war I agree with. But I will tell you this. After October 7th, they absolutely had a moral and even in terms of international law, an institutional responsibility to push back on what happened that day. On a relative basis, for them in Israel, that was a worse murder spree than what happened to us on 9/11, as tragic and horrible as that situation was. They had every right to push back on that. And in 2006, Israel made a deal to allow Gaza to be self-governed. And ever since that time, during that entire period since then, you've had rockets lobbed over from Gaza. They destroyed what was actually a decent economic base, even under the horrible and frankly, what I want to say, not quite evil, but certainly immoral administration of Israel over Gaza prior to 2006. They had a chance to really explode in prosperity and opportunity that they squandered. And all they did was cause more harm to Israel, throwing rockets regularly across their border into Israel. And then October 7th comes, I mean, what does anyone expect a nation to do? Just to sit back and take no action at all? So I mean, again, I think that you can make some criticisms maybe about how the Gaza war has been undertaken, but you can also provide a whole lot of praise too, and you certainly can make no rational argument that Israel had no right to do something like this. So if we can come out of that horrible 2-year war and get an agreement on the basis that Donald Trump has helped put together, it would be a radically wonderful change to the status quo that we have been under. And you have the Arab states willing to help out with this. They're working with Israel to the extent they are through the Abraham Accords. It's almost like all the pieces of the puzzle have come together, at least as we can lay them out on paper. If it can play out the right way, then Israel can really thrive. And one last point, Israel is the archaeological, the historical home of the Jewish people. All the archaeology in the area confirms against what a lot of people say, that no, it's really the Palestinian area. That is the most alarming false idea that there ever was. The archaeology makes it clear of the Jewish foundations in the state of Israel, in the land of the state of Israel. And they have every right to want to affirm that. And in my opinion, generally as a country, I think that they've done that quite well since 1948, and there's no reason that it should change. So in that sense, I completely stand with Israel.
Yes, hard-hitting analysis by Jim Paff. I like that because I like that you bring up the fact as well. You don't necessarily agree with everything that the government does, but that doesn't make someone automatically an anti-Semite. And that's, I think, the brilliance of President Trump's approach to everything. Dialogue with friends, dialogue with foes. That's why he solved or helped to solve 7 wars. And now with number 8 and potentially, God willing, number 9 on the horizon with Russia and Ukraine, I think it's very clear that he should at least be considered for the Nobel Peace Prize. And we know from Prime Minister Netanyahu and Congresswoman Tenney, Congressman Carter to the governments of Pakistan, all endorsing that and writing to include their names officially to recommend him for that award. Prime Minister Modi also sharing on Truth Social that he is in agreement with this peace deal that has been come up by American and Israeli diplomats, including the president and the prime minister. How will, in turn, that will affect perhaps global trade? Because we've seen President Trump use tariffs in many regards to level the playing field, and even this week as well with HHS, Doctors McCary and also Mehmet Oz, and partnering with Pfizer, trying to bring down the cost of medicine and a revamping, a relooking at healthcare in general with what Secretary Kennedy is doing at HHS.
Well, first of all, I'm very glad for the progress that's been made in that, because this has been, as many things that Donald Trump is seeking to fix, we have had an upside down order economically in so many areas. I mean, he is rejiggering the whole scope of world trade, where the United States, listen, I'm not a fan of tariffs when you just think about it, minus all the intervening situations that we see. But the order we have been under economically around the world has been that other countries have free trade with us, and we haven't had free trade with most other countries. And he is reordering that structure in a way that is going to be very positive. I'm unabashedly libertarian Austrian economics in my model of economic theory. And that theory can and does in many ways speak against a tariff regime, and you want to open up trade between countries. That's the goal that I have. And those who many who subscribe to that same economic philosophy are up in arms about what Donald Trump has been doing with tariffs. But I'm just the opposite. I've been arguing for years that we need to restructure this order. Everything that happens internationally, I mean, you want to know how strong a nation we are? We have continued to grow as a nation overall over the last 50, 60 years in a phenomenal way, with huge tariff trade wins against us if we wanted to expand into other markets. And we were still able to compete in many ways in markets. This puts the competition back in line, and it's going to help not just us, but it is going to help other countries too. So I'm hopeful that that as we redo what's happening with the pharmaceutical industry and the way that they've been overpricing us, one of the great examples of the trade regime being turned on its head against us, that can help reorder things worldwide. Companies should not get special benefits from government, and in terms of what we try to do in international trade, they shouldn't get special benefits from certain countries or be able to particularly, kind of jack up prices because of what that international order is. So this is going to be a real help, and the pharmaceutical industry is going to have to step up to the plate and do the right thing. By the way, I have great misgivings of doing this with Pfizer because I think they've been one of the worst actors internationally, in what they've done, and definitely with what they were able to obtain through COVID, which was billions of dollars on a vaccine that I think only had limited efficacy and was only necessary for a certain group of people, mainly older people and people with secondary health issues that needed to be protected. But that said, this is the right approach to take. I hope it works well. Glad to see my hometown pharmaceutical company, Eli Lilly, involved with this too. I grew up in Indianapolis, and they're a big actor there, a big player there. But this is really something that is a very bold and frankly risky move by Donald Trump, which I think is going to help things get back in line in one of the industries that has been the worst industries in terms of the massaging of research through regulatory capture. The pharmaceutical industry has owned the FDA and the other regulatory agencies because and it has made trade worse because small companies that want to come in, they have the hurdle of the FDA to even get started. And so hopefully we can change some of that regulatory structure as well. But if we can get the pricing in line and we can get opportunities for other companies to come in and come up with new ideas, that would be a universally wonderful thing to take place. And I think this is a good first step for that.
Favored nation status and the right to try. I think it's common sense in what can be a very long line, a system that has really, I think, struggled since the institution of Obamacare just some years ago. Jim Paff, president of the Conservative Caucus, always a joy to have you on, sir. Thank you for your hard-hitting analysis on the Hill and with other issues affecting the federal city.
Thanks for that. Quick shout out to my former boss, Tim Huelskamp, congressman from Kansas, who's the guy who really championed right to try. And without his effort, that wouldn't have happened. It's one of the great innovations. But thanks for your time. Good to be with you.
Oh, likewise. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And as we wait for Karoline Leavitt to give a press briefing at 1 o'clock, stick with us here as we're diving into a whole host of issues affecting your neck of the woods and, yes, the federal city of Washington, D.C. on a rather gorgeous day at the White House there. You can see with the gorgeous flags. I usually get into a lovely trance looking at the north and south lawn with the big, beautiful, bold flag poles that President Trump installed. We know every president gets their chance to put their staple on the White House, and he sure has, not only as the West Wing president, but putting forth new policies like right to try and favored nation status, working with Congress to attempt to keep this government open during the Schumer shutdown, but a man who has that sense of Midas touch, putting gold into the Oval Office, and another man who has that Midas touch is Mike Lindell, mypillow.com/RSBN. The 6-piece towel set back in stock. It usually goes for $70. Now $39.98, a very limited quantity. mypillow.com/RSBN, 800-836-7566. Support Mr. Mike Lindell and Right Side Broadcasting Network by shopping now at mypillow.com/RSBN. You can also donate to this great network That is not a part of the legacy media. We're not corporate. We focus on the new media and bringing the truth to you, the American people, because we believe that you can make up your own mind and do better with what's around your dinner table than what a centralized government will want for you, with the far left control and the thought police and the wokeism that we have seen over the course of the last decade. So please support us right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, rsbnetwork.com/donate, or text RSBN to 801-801. Again, that's rsbnetwork.com/donate. You may also text RSBN to 801-801. Now at 12:23, and Monetary Gold. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. It's wealth security preservation. Grab your complimentary presidential gold guide today. Call now, call today, don't delay, because you can ask how you can eliminate your IRA fees permanently for life. 888-617-7994. That's 888-617-7994. RSBNforthegold.com. RSBNforthegold.com. We speak with David Schroeder of Monetary Gold on a weekly basis to discover how you can protect and preserve your wealth, your securities, your retirement that you've worked so hard for. And this truly is the go-to business. Robert Kiyosaki, a good friend of President Trump, has warned us. He's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that two banks have failed in 2025. So what are you to do when 5,000 years of human history have pointed to the hot commodities and precious metals that are gold and silver? Well, get some, because all of the big banks, they're buying it up rather quickly. Again, rsbnforthegold.com, 888-617-7994. Diversify your assets. Wealth security preservation. It's Monetary Gold. Grab your complimentary presidential gold guide today. And we are celebrating the golden era this October 1st, 2025, leading into the 250th anniversary and birth date of this constitutional republic. And the good old US of A will celebrate it with a UFC fight on the south lawn of the White House, that being confirmed by Dana White, the owner and friend of President Trump, owner of the UFC group that President Trump is a huge fan on. So we look forward to that just a few months from now. I'm sure that will come just around the corner as Democrats betray Americans with government shutdowns. According to the White House, the Democrats have officially brought on a full-blown government shutdown engineered by the radical left lunatics who control their party. As the lives and livelihoods of millions of Americans hang in the balance, Chuck Schumer gives it 2 thumbs up. I mean, this guy is amazing. I think AOC has quite a pathway to defeating him in a primary come 2028. But the fallout from Democrat shutdown hits Americans where it hurts. Critical food assistance for low-income women, infants. Also, children will lapse. Americans will experience travel delays, disruptions to Social Security services, also funding for inpatient home care and telehealth services for Medicare patients will be suspended, along with some services for veterans. Now, the list is endless as the effects ripple across all sectors of the American economy, and it's the Democrats' fault. This is 100% the Schumer shutdown, and for those visiting from school, they won't be able to visit the Capitol. You might miss out on a library or a museum of a presidential foundation. I remember back in 2013, I had been to the Nixon Library on a couple of occasions, but I thought, I had some time. I was visiting the West Coast, once again, seeing some friends and family, and it's all locked down because of inept leadership by the Congress. But this is no question. A clean CR came across from the Republicans and Chuck Schumer and his team shutting it down. But cut number 9, Mr. Producer, Secretary Noem is reassuring leadership throughout this country and law enforcement that officers will continue to work throughout the Democrat shutdown to make sure our homeland is safe and secure. More than 200,000 of these patriots will go without pay. And the Democrats will be forcing over 150,000 officers and nearly 50,000 members of the military, our front line of defense, to continue protecting our nation without pay. So any Democrat leaders who might be watching Right Side Broadcasting Network right now, stop with the political games. You are back in session this afternoon. The House has left for Yom Kippur. They did their due diligence. This is all a Democrat obstruction to prevent the government from being open for 7 weeks. We saw the pictures. We can run them again, 2 through 4. Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer joining John Thune and House Speaker Mike Johnson, Vice President J.D. Vance. The leaders there together, for some reason, they picked out Trump 2028 hats from the gift shop instead of actually getting down to business to want to keep this government open. It's all in the Democrats' hands. It's all in Chuck Schumer's hands. And I'm sure that AOC will use this from the far left in order to run against him in the Empire State for that upcoming election in 2028. So as they twiddle their thumbs, as they goof around with this and play games with the American people, it's the White House and Republican leadership in Congress and the MAGA movement that continue to fight for the American people. As you see the setup there, a video we shared yesterday from the White House, that these Democrats have continually wanted to keep government open, saying that shutdowns would be immoral back in 2012 and 2013 when Barack Hussein Obama was in the White House. So what has changed with their approach? And why do they want to cut funding for rural hospitals and $1.5 trillion they want to give over of your hard-earned money to illegals? Doesn't make a lot of sense. But there is good news at the end of the tunnel, as we have found that Florida, breaking news this past week, the state just announced a $60 million investment in cancer research. So what makes this different is that they're focusing on affordable life-saving medication, just like allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN is with ivermectin, mebendazole, now 25% off. With the additional code RSBN10, scan the QR code there now for all the information, because Big Pharma doesn't like it that you have choices, that you have a go-to online pharmacy like allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And that's where they come in. They've been providing ivermectin, other essential medications like hydrochloroquine, mebendazole, NAD+, 200 essential medications, and emergency medical kits at a pharmacy you can trust online that will guarantee your medicines get to you by the end of the week. So order now at 12:30 Eastern, and you can have medicine to your door in as early as 48 hours from now. Every order reviewed by a doctor, shipped right to your door. No red tape, no bureaucracy, no health insurance, no problem. It's almost like a no shoes, no shirt, no problem situation. Ivermectin, mebendazole, 25% off, code RSBN10 now. Take advantage of these savings while you can. Scan the QR code there, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. As we await Karoline Leavitt to give a press conference today. She is the superstar, as President Trump says, and we have our very own superstar, Ashley Brassfield of the Daily Caller, covering everything on Capitol Hill. Ashley, you've been busy this week covering a lot of things outside of the shutdown. Tell us about this grieving father. I saw his testimony, another beautiful woman being brutally murdered by a repeat offender. And these Democrat lawmakers, first of all, can't even say their name, and then seem to be extraordinarily unaware of what's happening in their own backyard. Why are these people allowed to go out and live on the streets when they've committed such heinous crimes?
Right. Well, I spoke to Stephen Federico. His daughter, Logan Federico, was a 22-year-old girl visiting friends in Columbia, South Carolina in May of this year, and was, murdered during a home invasion, executed actually. And it really just a horrific scene. Of course, this happening before even the incident with Irina Zarutska on the Charlotte rail train that we all, know so well, that video that is so horrific. But this was during, of course, a House Judiciary field basically meeting that they were having. And Mr. Federico spoke about his daughter. He actually had a picture posted up in front of him of his daughter Logan. And basically, one of the Democrat members that were at the committee hearing saw the picture and referred to the picture as it was Irina. So big mistake there. To say the least, Mr. Federico, I've spoke to him yesterday myself and was able to interview him, and he was not pleased with the manner, and he made it very clear to the Congresswoman, I believe it was Rep. Ross, that was not Irina, that is his daughter Logan, and he said her name and made sure that the Congresswoman knew that was his daughter's name. So really just a terrible scene, kind of, shows what the Democrats see victims of violent crime as. They're all one and the same in a way in their eyes. And I even spoke to Mr. Federico yesterday, and I asked him, have any Democrat lawmakers spoken to you since your daughter's death? And he told me he has not heard from one of them. Of course, Congressman James Clyburn, who's a well-known Democrat, is the congressman for that district in Columbia, South Carolina. I know well. I was a student at University of South Carolina, so I made sure to ask him that as well. So really terrible, terrible situation. And but it was great for the American people, I think, to see and now to hear his daughter Logan's story. He's a great man. You can tell he's a great father as well.
Heartbreaking to watch that testimony, as I did just the other day. And Congressman Clyburn, someone who helped to invent the auto pen with his endorsement of Joe Biden way back in 2020. But we also saw as a teen walked away free from murder, a charge after serving just over 4 years probation. Why is there such an approach with this soft on crime? It seems to be affecting every jurisdiction, mostly coming from the judicial branch of things. But we see DAs that are so committed to get Trump. That's their mission, whether it's Letitia James down to Fani Willis in Georgia and just about everywhere in between. But then you have these horrific stories that lead to homicides and these wonderful people that have their whole lives ahead of them because they seem to miss the ball on these criminals that are running wild.
Right. And I mean, Mr. Federico told me yesterday, he's like, the last thing I wanted this to be was about race and politics, really. But when it comes down to it, it really is that, Bobby. All of this crime is basically concentrated in these blue cities, like you said, with these, lackluster judges and DAs that are not putting forth criminals to be prosecuted in the correct way is the best way I really can say it. And, this is becoming very apparent. A lot of these hearings exposing this. Of course, Irina was one of the main causes for this to be sparked. And we even talked about that a little bit with Mr. Federico, that, he's glad that his daughter's execution was not caught on video and wouldn't wish that on anyone. But unfortunately, that's what it's come to spark the attention on this matter. And, I think it's time that we start paying attention. Of course, now it's starting to concentrate in DC with the National Guard being deployed. And we've seen crime rates go down, and we are needing to see, I think, changes, nationally to stop this from happening. Me and both know that, the murder of Laken Riley that occurred in Georgia was one of the main things on the campaign trail. Of course, that was an illegal immigrant, but now we're dealing with domestic issues and, the conversation of mental asylums being brought back for many of these individuals to be put in to receive the correct care is a conversation that I even had with Mr. Federico that he even proposed. But it really comes down to these people getting more than, 3 chances. His daughter's killer that was charged in it received over 40 chances, it seems like. So that, I think it's a reoccurring problem people are starting to question.
And every neck of the woods affected by these horrible crimes, even here, the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, really shook up prior to the horrible murder of our friend Charlie Kirk. Another murder of a former professor who was beloved in the community, who had a similar fate as Laken Riley, out there on a Saturday in the afternoon, bright sunshine, and the individual told police, "I wanted her red truck. That's why I did what I did," while she's walking her dog. So it is this talk about mental health, talk about protection, allowing people to have their Second Amendment rights. Also, I'm just telling, especially young women out there, and you can probably have a bigger amplified voice on this, being a young woman like yourself. Please, please, please be aware of your surroundings. Go in groups, be aware of things. But tell us, post-President Trump, really getting involved in the federal city, what's it like as you live there? Do you feel safer? Are you able to go out to dinner? What's happening on the ground in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, well, as a young female, of course, I'm always watching my back, especially, being on public transportation like the metro system here. But I mean, there is still a National Guard presence. There's rumors that might go away in November, which, I've talked to many girls my age and they really like the National Guard being around. They feel safer. The presence definitely is a deterrence. And that's just been my own personal conversations. So it will be interesting to see if that gets extended. I think most of the basically consent around that I'm been talking to is saying that we'd like to keep them here, honestly. But we see trucks driving around DC. I saw one right by my apartment saying "Free DC." They don't want the National Guard here. That's really not the sentiment I'm hearing across the board. It's a minority stating that. So that's what I'm seeing here personally.
And another thing in the news lately, this is a big week of news. President Trump with peace proposals from America to Israel toward the Gazan leadership, but also Hamas, if they will exit and finally stop their bloody scourge against the Jewish people, but also here at home with the reduction of big pharma costs and Pfizer, of all people, I think we were surprised, getting involved with wanting to assist in public-private partnerships with health and human services. But you did an exclusive with a congressional candidate vowing to target big pharma. How does he plan to take them on and to be that amplified voice in the Congress when we know that sometimes freshman and sophomore congressmen, they have a hard time really getting their voices out there because leadership likes to kind of put them in a corner regardless of party. But how do you see this individual making a way for himself to really fight for affordable prescriptions right here at home?
Yeah, this is congressional candidate Daniel Keenan out of Arizona. He's actually trying to take Andy Big's seat, who's running for governor currently in the state. But Daniel and I spoke, and he was very adamant of the fact that he feels like the root of this problem when it comes to, trans mass shootings that seems to be, occurring more and more so. Maybe not on a huge level yet, but it just seems to be ticking upward. And so he basically said that we need to really target pharma and basically be stripping many of these HIPAA restrictions on these providers that, kind of are basically what the left calls gender affirming care procedures. Many medications such as like SSRIs, which are psychiatric drugs. And then, of course, surgeries that, affirm gender in many ways. He would like to see these people have HIPAA restrictions so that victims can have a civil litigation against them. I think that is a great cause. I even, talked to him about, well, do you think we could even be fortifying some of these soft targets? And he said, I have my children out of school that, has an armed guard specifically there, but he's like, I really still don't think this is the root of the cause. And he went back to this big pharma argument. But I think this is going to be, something talked about and continue to be talked about. I think HHS has already kind of spoken about this, but on a federal level, I think that's where his concern is. And even he said in his state that they're not really talking about it. They're more so just talking about school of choice, not really the healthcare side. So kind of pushing him there to see his thoughts. But yeah, it was a great conversation, great interview. And I highly encourage everybody to go check it out. I think it's a great proposal.
As someone that would give free advice, being around politics for a long time on both sides of the aisle, perhaps those congressional candidates should be talking about healthcare because it's on the mind of countless Americans, regardless of political ideology, and can become a real nightmare when it comes to costs and simple healthcare. There are new emails allegedly showing now how Epstein lured these girls, because I know that many people have asked just how was he able to operate his network in the shadows for so long, seemingly having this high society type of lifestyle, whether it be in Florida or New York. But it seems as if, and you're helping to find how he was able to create this really demonic network to lure young girls into his spider web.
Yeah, well, this email trove was basically obtained by, I believe, Bloomberg it was. I might be wrong there, so don't quote me there. But this trove of emails, it was over, I believe, 18,000 emails that they've received from his Yahoo account personally, and kind of, goes back. We only covered really the, girls that he was trying to traffic, the descriptions he would give, but even just high up individuals in academia, really. But it was really a treasure trove to give an insight on what Jeffrey Epstein was actually like, kind of just how really gross he was in a lot of ways. And even the discussions he had with Ghislaine Maxwell, which kind of counter some of her arguments she's given as well recently. But really just an insight into his mind and the type of person he was that I think American public hasn't really seen before. So I think that's what the real treasure was there, being able to see what he was like in that way.
Disturbing to analyze all of this, but staying on this very important topic, as many people do want justice in that story. And we have Senators Collins and Murkowski going at it again. They did not even meet with President Trump's nominee, yet they'll always wag their finger in one direction or the other. This makes me want term limits more than anything else, because the senator from Maine, the senator from Alaska, I've seen them in action, especially Murkowski when I covered local politics, all the way up in the last frontier. They seem to be on an island of their own. It's bizarre to me how they can formulate such personal opinions and be so offended by certain nominees, and they won't even take the time to sit down with them. I mean, even Democrats will sit down with Trump nominees, and you don't have that from fellow Republicans Collins and Murkowski.
Right. Well, EJ Antoni is specifically the nominee being specified here. His nomination was just withdrawn last night, really, from the BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics. And so, the report started coming out today, basically stating that those two senators refused to meet with him. That was what caused the red flags for the nomination to possibly be withdrawn. We got from a source saying that was true. We followed up, of course, with Murkowski and Collins. Murkowski saying that she had a delayed flight and therefore her meeting was missed and they weren't able to reschedule it. I don't know how many people are going to buy that. A lot of the time, with, like you said, with Lisa Murkowski, it's kind of hard to believe with the pushback she has sometimes. Of course, Senator Collins basically saying, and I will give them credit, this nominee was introduced in August. It's only October 1st, just today. So not a ton of time. But those are two senators that have pushed back. And so it's hard to believe to say that they didn't have a meeting set up with the two people that would be the biggest concern in a lot of ways. So that I think that's for the public to decide at this point. And we try to present that the best way we could.
Ashley Brassfield of the Daily Caller. She's our eyes and ears within the Beltway. Thanks for joining us today, and have a great week.
Awesome. Thank you.
And stay tuned for Karoline Leavitt, the press secretary, to give a press briefing from the James S. Brady briefing room in the West Wing. We look forward to what should be countless topics, especially focused on the Schumer shutdown as it continues to go on. And we'll stay very close to that because this afternoon the Senate will gavel into session. Perhaps the Democrats will have a change of heart. Perhaps he will worry about AOC primarying him, but we'll see what happens there as Senator Schumer, the Palestinian senator from New York, as President Trump aptly puts it, really holding the government hostage. And our law enforcement, our brave people, as Secretary Noah mentioned, they will be going without pay in the meantime. It's an egregious situation when they had a clean CR. This is why we need term limits. Thank you to Kalshi.com/RSBN for all of the questions that are affecting you in the Beltway, outside of the Beltway. It's sports, it's music, it's culture, it is politics. Who will win that Nobel Peace Prize? I think our guests aptly shared today and made clear that Donald Trump should be at the top of that list. Will President Zelensky meet with President Putin before January, after the peace accords happening in Anchorage, Alaska, and at the White House in mid to late August? How about my Chicago Cubs? Will they go all the way once again after a drought of 108 years between 1908 and 2016 between championships, the longest drought in major sports history? Well, let's not wait 100 years again. Boys, let's go out there and get it. How about the Los Angeles Dodgers? Can they repeat the World Series championship? All kinds of questions like that at Kalshi.com/RSBN. Scan the QR code today and find out how you can have some fun with that. AngelPace.com, the miracle that is out of Spring, Texas, off the Gulf of America. The vitamin B original, non-GMO, no chemicals, good for your skin, good to absorb. You have no worries there. I've used it right here at the network. I continue to use it to give you glowing skin. It is the go-to product. Sometimes you go down to the pharmacy, down the street, whatever it might be, and you find from the drugstore things with all these different dyes and chemicals in them with 40 plus ingredients. Not good for your health, but Miracle Cream is good for you with a facial spray that can allow you to paint the town red for guys, for gals. It's a great thing to do. It's also Christian owned. They hire veterans, again, out of the Lone Star State of Texas in Spring, in the Houston Metroplex. A wonderful place to live. Angelpaste.com. Thank you to mypillow.com/RSBN for the 6-piece towel set. They're back in stock. Once going for $70, now 40, under 40 at $39.98. A very limited quantity at mypillow.com/RSBN. Call today. Don't delay. It's 800-836-7566 for towels that actually work. And Mike Lindell, the master marketer, the purveyor of free speech, the defender of election integrity. And my goodness gracious, he mentioned to our very own Matthew Alvarez a couple of weeks ago, I might be running for governor of Minnesota. We'll bug you, Mike. We'll have you come on here. We'd love for you to announce right here at Right Side Broadcasting if that is taking place next year. But in the meantime, mypillow.com/RSBN, 2,000 different incredible made in America products to help you get a better night's sleep, to help prepare you for your day, like the 6-piece towel set does. Back in stock, under $40, $39.98. Get yours today. mypillow.com/RSBN. Again, thank you to Mike Lindell and his incredible staff in Minnesota for these American-made products. As we are approaching the top of the hour and press taking their seats for Karoline Leavitt, the superstar press secretary that will highlight this Schumer shutdown. A week that we've seen a proposal in peace from the American and Israeli governments to double down on the Abraham Accords, as President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu aptly put it, in the Israeli tradition that brings peace to the entire region, something that so many of these governments want to see, with Arab nations as well, helping out to see the end of what could be Hamas's terrorism throughout the region. We're also seeing a bringing down, a scaling back of the cost of prescription medications and the right to try, mixed with favored nation status, something we should have, as Jim Path aptly detailed right here on the show, the fact that America in the trade system, in international trade, because of what we provided for the world, we were really being taken advantage of. It wasn't truly free trade. It wasn't even fair. But we know with President Trump, his use of tariffs, it is now becoming fair in that process. So the question is today, will Senator Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, actually support Israel? Will he also continue to open the government, join Republicans in these very efforts? We'll see this afternoon as we're 10 minutes away from Karoline Leavitt. Let's take a quick commercial break. Stick with us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Don't change that dial. And as one of our friends of the network said the other day, you have a moment to grab a beer if you have the day off. So get the popcorn, open up a can of beer, and get ready for Karoline Leavitt. We'll see you back on the other side.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. Minutes from now, Karoline Leavitt, the press secretary at the White House, to give a press briefing at the top of the hour. We see our colleagues, the White House press pool, all gathering for what will be a very important one. They're always important, but today, extremely important, giving the peace proposal being proposed by the American and Israeli governments. We saw that on Monday with President Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. In addition to that, we have seen the efforts to scale down Big Pharma and Pfizer, of all organizations, teaming up with Health and Human Services, with Secretary Kennedy's work, and doctors Marty Makary, Mehmet Oz, and the president, who championed Right to Try, who, as we spoke with Ashley Brassfield from the Daily Caller, there are congressional candidates running on this very issue, both right, left, and center, that healthcare in America needs to be reformed, that you can really bring down the cost of life-saving medications through Right to Try, through favored nation status. And in the meantime, what will Chuck Schumer and his Democrats do in the Senate? The Senate Minority Leader truly holding the rest of his membership hostage in refusing to open the government. This is facing that 60-vote threshold with filibuster, and just yesterday, it failed 55-45 in the United States Senate to keep the government open through the use of a clean CR, which would have kept the government open for another 7 weeks. So the question is, why did they do that after meeting with President Trump just the other day? We could show those photos again, Mr. Producer, 2 through 4 there, where it seems as if the Democrat leaders chose the Trump 2028 hats in the gift shop and seemed to have jovial conversation. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries there with the vice president and the president. Of course, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer with Senate Majority Leader John Thune, the House Speaker Mike Johnson, all of the leadership in the Oval Office. President Trump said it was extraordinarily constructive on Monday evening, but ultimately that led to Democrats really digging their heels in the sand and refusing to pass this clean CR, the cleanest CR perhaps since 1998, when we've been practicing this, as we discussed with Jim Paff earlier on the show, that it really put the power into the hands of leadership. And that's why you hear complaints from people, whether it be Senator Tommy Tuberville, who is now running for governor of Alabama. He said, I cannot get done what I want to get done here in 1 or 2 terms. That's why I'm going to come home and work for reforms right in the great state of Alabama, because why would I waste my time on Capitol Hill when leadership really seeks to control so much of the bacon-making process of writing these bills, of getting them through committee? Because we do know, especially the practices of Nancy Pelosi, that leadership would punish other members for having a different perspective, or they would take them off of leadership roles from committees. Really an egregious practice, because does that truly represent all of the people? And an even more egregious thing, the fact that the Democrats want to get rid of a CR that funds rural hospitals and that defunds illegal aliens and helps support the deportation of their criminal acts. Why would you not want that for the American people? Well, we know big news out of Florida. Last week, the state just announced a $60 million investment in cancer research. Now, 25% off ivermectin mebendazole as a result of allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, responding to this great news out of Florida. What makes this different is they're focusing on affordable life-saving medication. As I mentioned, ivermectin, mebendazole, methylene blue, NAD+, 200 essential medications that can be stocked in your medicine cabinet that you could take on the road with you. How about emergency medical kits as well? You can get that additional 10% off with code RSBN10. Oh my goodness, some of these life-saving meds, they don't get prescribed, although they've been on the market for 40 or 50 years, even some winning Nobel Peace Prizes. That's the problem with Big Pharma. They don't want to prescribe these things when there's no big profit in generics. So that's where All Family Pharmacy comes in to save the day. No red tape, no bureaucracy, no insurance, no problem. Just life-saving medications that are affordable for once and that get to your door within 2 to 3, 4, or even 5 days, likely even sooner. So allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, getting to your door in record time. Order now at 1 o'clock. You could have it by Friday at 1 p.m. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. And speaking of health, especially gut health, covepure.com/RSBN, this wonderful reverse osmosis system, the same size as your ingenious coffee maker that you can put right on the top of the kitchen counter. Again, you see the reverse osmosis technology going in there. Now, it's clear water technology that removes 99.9% of the impurities from the water. We're talking fluoride, agricultural runoff, pesticides, hormone disruptors, and blockers, including birth control. Now you ask, oh, how the heck does birth control get into tap water? Well, the body doesn't always absorb all of what's ingested. Therefore, when it goes through the waste and into the treatment plants, they don't fully get all of the toxins out of the water. What's even more frightening is the fact that JAMA Pediatrics, doing a study with doctors and scientists and finding that children drinking out of the tap on a regular basis lose up to 2, if not more, IQ points on a daily basis. So drink pure, live pure, covepure.com/RSBN, $200 off what matters most. And state governments coming around the message of Secretary Bobby Kennedy to make America healthy again through Health and Human Services, with Utah and Florida passing legislation to do just that. Countless governors getting aboard. covepure.com/RSBN. Whether it's Kentucky, Utah, all the way up to Washington State and down to the free state of Florida, America deserves pure, holistic water the way it was meant to be consumed. Drink pure, live pure. It's covepure.com/RSBN. Scan that QR code there as we await Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing just moments from now. On a historic October 1st, 2025. This is truly the Schumer lockdown. And for some reason, we keep having Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, followed by a mariachi band. Cut 1, Mr. Producer.
It's a disgusting video, and we're going to continue to make clear bigotry will get you nowhere. We are fighting to protect the health care of the American people in the face of an unprecedented Republican assault.
Comedy can make a difference to get your message out there, and President Trump has used that on a daily basis to really tease what the Democrats have done. They have failed the American people. They would rather put illegal aliens ahead of American citizens who have been saving in their finances in order to be able to provide for their families. So the government should make that earlier. And Karoline Leavitt, speaking on this topic, cut 8, Mr. Producer, via Truth Social. It shows you the votes right there, 55 to 45. The Democrats filibustering this common sense CR, saying Democrats are shutting down the federal government because President Trump won't force taxpayers to pay for health care for illegal aliens. Just think about that. The Democrat elected representatives are punishing their own constituents to fight for illegals. It's deranged. It's insane. And we actually found footage with cut number 7 of what the Democrats are actually doing on the job in the halls of Congress.
Early worm gets the worm. Do not talk to me until I have had my coffee. Just pooping. You know how I be. I'm hungry.
Michael ate an entire family-sized chicken pot pie for lunch.
He's on a sales call.
No work! No work! Here are some downloaded peaceful sounds. That one makes me think of death. How can I be productive if I have this one little thing in my brain that I cannot get out? And that one little thing is a soft pretzel. Oh, wow, okay. All right, let's all go home.
Oh, it must be nice having liberal privilege, as Don Jr. wrote extensively on that in years past regarding what these Democrats do. Oh, goodness. It's just, life would be a lot easier being a congressional Democrat. But the proof is in the pudding. There was a clean CR. The House and Senate leadership holding that press conference earlier today. We hope you caught that at the top of the 11 o'clock hour. We've been on for the last couple of hours showcasing shutdown day in America. This is Chuck Schumer's shutdown. The House did its job passing that CR that's clean, and that would keep the government open for 7 weeks, something you think that both parties could come together on. But the obstructionists of old, which would be or should be shown very likely from those television monitors of the same Palestinian Senator Chuck Schumer from years ago and Pocahontas from New Hampshire, stating that they have to keep the government open and that this was just a game of obstructionist Republicans, so-called, from the Barack Hussein Obama tenure of 2012 and 2013. But then when it's President Donald Trump who's meeting with them, trying to come to a consensus, Vice President J.D. Vance laying this out as well with comments outside of the White House on Tuesday that, okay, if you have a difference on this kind of issue, on that kind of issue, all could be understood, all could be talked through. But when you're funding illegal aliens at the tune of $1.5 trillion of government money that we know of, your hard-earned tax money that you use for retirement, Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, and they want to gut rural funding for hospitals and health care, then really what is the end mission? What is the end goal? I thought that Democrats were once for the so-called little guy. That's how it was when I grew up. It was, Republicans are more for the white collar, the richer guy. The Democrats are more for, that blue collar worker. That's why we had so many conservative, social conservative Democrats in the city of Chicago when I was growing up in the late 80s, all of the 90s. I can remember that. Even at that time, as I was forming all of my opinions as a young man, oh, goodness, I didn't have a lot of difference with the Democrats of that time because they really wanted what was seemingly the same for America, just having a different approach to it, focused on union rights and workers' rights, something now that has really been absorbed by the entirety of the Republican MAGA movement, because it is a common sense approach from a businessman who came down the golden escalator, who knows a thing or two about negotiating with people and what it means to actually set a budget and having to care for, in turn, people's families by employing them. I think that's the biggest difference we've seen since the emergence of President Trump onto the national stage. It's knowing how to handle contracts. It's knowing how to negotiate. It's knowing that, I won't always necessarily have a job unless I produce. He famously told that story on The Apprentice of someone who wanted a massive raise. And he said, what are you doing? You haven't sold anything in the last year and a half. In fact, you're not getting a raise. You're fired. And I mean, that's how he approaches the world, with common sense, with a clear lens, and not fairy tale dust that the Democrats continue to sprinkle all over the federal city. So if you're just tuning in, this is your favorite live desk at Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Robert McNeely as we bring you the news of the day, hard-hitting interviews, and what's happening in your neck of the woods, but especially today, the federal city, as we await Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, the superstar, as President Trump puts it, to hold a press briefing on this Wednesday, October 1st, 2025. And we know, according to the White House, that Democrats have betrayed the American people with this government shutdown, the Schumer shutdown, as it's aptly known. Democrats have officially brought on a full-blown government shutdown engineered by the radical left lunatics who control their party. As the livelihood of millions of Americans hangs in the balance, Chuck Schumer gives it 2 thumbs up on another network. I mean, it's amazing. AOC has a clear path to run against him as a result because the fallout from the Democrat shutdown has hit Americans where it hurts. Critical food assistance for low-income families, infants, and children will lapse if the government does not open this afternoon. Now, Americans will experience travel days and disruptions and hurting of their Social Security services, disruptions to those that are not needed in this golden era. Funding for inpatient home services and telehealth services for Medicare patients will be suspended as a result, along with some services for veterans. The list is endless as the effects ripple across all sectors of the American economy, and it's all the Democrats' fault. Even Kristi Noem spoke on it via X that roughly 200,000 police officers will go without pay in order to keep America safe from the threat that is or was an open border, as it's gone down immensely since President Trump taking office, as she stated there on X. Our DHS Gov law enforcement officers will continue to work throughout the Democrat shutdown to make sure our homeland is safe and secure. More than 200,000 of these patriots will go without pay. The Democrats will be forcing 150,000 officers and nearly 50,000 members of the military and our front line of defense to continue protecting our nation without pay. Just absolutely shameful to do. Maybe they'll have a change of heart this afternoon as they gavel in. We'll be there for you at Right Side Broadcasting Network Live. And Mr. Producer, again, that sponsor one more time. Yes, thank you, sir. Please donate to what is an outlet that is focused on you. For a decade, we were your go-to live desk that also did the rallies. So since January, we've changed it up a bit and making it fun for you, a spin on the news that's hopeful, that's positive, that's Bible-believing, and that cuts into the culture. We know that politics simply the downstream of the culture, as we are culture warriors here focused on things like grassroots humility, persistent innovation, warrior spirit, all the ethos and the apparatus of what Turning Point USA is, as we remember our late dear friend, the great Charlie Kirk. Please support us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, rsbnetwork.com/donate. You can text RSBN to 801-801. There is also a hard address for you. Very easy to remember, but you might want a pen and paper, as you can grab that now. It's 1550-1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6. That's Box 344 in the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama. 36830-1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama. 36830. As you see gorgeous views of what was the most famous election perhaps in American history, 2024. How can one forget? I look back at my calendar from just 1 year ago today, and it brings tears of joy that God had such mercy on us and that you, the American people, returned Donald Trump to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Thanks be to God. rsbnetwork.com/donate. RSBN to 801-801. Thanks for your support on the right side of history. We are awaiting Karoline Leavitt to hold a press briefing live from the James S. Brady briefing room in the West Wing of the White House, in a jam-packed room. And my goodness, as you saw just there, you can use your phone to film now. All of the technology, it's changed media really for the better. You don't have to lunk in all of that gear necessarily like you used to, or at least it's smaller and more compact than that of past with the digital technology. And I'm sure this will be a very big press conference given the news that has broken this week, whether it's the cancer research in Florida to the movement of HHH HHS, led by Secretary Kennedy, working with places like Pfizer, trying to bring down the costs of medication and follow through on President Trump's executive orders of favored nations status, but also the right to try. You should have that option. If it really is my body, my choice for the far left, why do they have a differing opinion when it comes to perhaps inoculation or right to try or these life-saving medications like ivermectin and hydrochloroquine and NAD plus mebendazole that's been used for 40, 50 years that the FDA has approved, but all of the sudden they start using terminology like horse pills, or they really don't work, when in many trials it has been shown to counter Alzheimer's or even dementia, Parkinson's in some cases. Why not allow the American people that freedom and that right to try, as President Trump working overtime for that? There's also a historic proposal from the American and Israeli governments to bring peace to Gaza and the Middle East. We know dating back to 2006, the Palestinian Liberation Authority, Hamas in turn, when they were granted power in their parliament, refusing to lay down arms, a farewell to arms of sorts, if they were actually reading Hemingway, but they choose not to. Instead of using words and peace, they desire to fire rockets and murder Jews in their anti-Semitic practices. It's wrong, it's horrible, and it was a moral right of Israel to defend itself. You could still criticize the Israeli government. It does not make you an anti-Semite, but recognize that they were attacked in such a brutal manner. And it wasn't just Jewish people or those of Israeli citizenship. It was Americans. It was Europeans who came together in an attack that caused more havoc and more loss of life than that of even the horrible events of 9/11. It's terrible to think about as we approach the second anniversary of October 7th of 2023. And President Trump is right. If he was in office during that time, these monsters, these barbarians would not have had their chance to harm innocent civilian life quite like they did 2 years ago. So the TVs are on, the monitors ready. We have the Israeli flag entering, it looks as if, or is that the vice president's flag? I'm seeing it kind of folded up there. That might be a special guest today. It looks like the vice president's flag is coming in, so we might have the vice president joining us for the press briefing with Karoline Leavitt. So we'll see if that has a special guest. J.D. Vance might be joining the press briefing today when you see those flags enter and the seal of the vice president on the podium. So a special guest today for the right side of history and for all media outlets today covering Karoline Leavitt's weekly press briefing. So we'll see the comments there from the 50th Vice President of the United States. What a treat for us, as this is the most transparent administration in American history. There's no question about that. With the numbers of interviews and the access, nearly every day becomes a press briefing when President Trump is going on to Marine One, as he did with his granddaughter Kai Trump last week for the Ryder Cup, to just yesterday as he went to Quantico, to the Marine base, stopping to answer questions that the White House press pool had. So another exciting moment as the vice president will be joining this press briefing to touch on the issues of the day. And he has that role as the president of the Senate. For those who are asking, what are the roles of the vice president? What are the constitutionally bound titles? Well, second in command, but what does that consist of? Truly, it's the roles of president of the Senate, to be overlooking the Senate in that role, but also to be the tie-breaking vote when it does become a 50-50 vote on the floor, and in turn, doing the duties asked of the individual by the President of the United States. So there have been moments where a president ignores their vice president. There have been others where you have such an extraordinary personal and professional relationship between President Trump and Vice President Vance. Really, Vice President Vance being the heir apparent of the MAGA movement and perhaps the front runner as we look towards 2028, not to get ahead of ourselves, but us politicos, those who are obsessed with this process, see Vice President J.D. Vance as quite the contender for 2028, and someone who's also been a brilliant consoler-in-chief, whether it's celebrating cancer research and attacking these diagnoses of young people who end up with these terrible diseases, to speaking out about Jesus, as he mentioned at the Charlie Kirk Memorial in Glendale, Arizona. I have not spoken on Christ in this much as I have over the course of the last 2 weeks in my public service. And we know that the vice president sharing with us the idea of the Norvus Ordo, something that's taught within Catholic ranks, especially for men. It's how do you order your life in the sense of God, family, country, something that Charlie Kirk often spoke about at these Turning Point USA and Turning Point Faith conferences about the structure of the family and what matters most. And then, of course, the role as the inaugural host post that terrible assassination and murder of our friend Charlie, the vice president hosting the Charlie Kirk Show live from the ornate vice presidential office, the ceremonial office, which was once the host of the Secretary of War and the Pentagon offices way back in the day, overlooking the West Wing. So we'll have the 50th Vice President, J.D. Vance, to join Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt in moments from now, holding a press briefing. We will take you right there when all of that happens. In the meantime, cut number 5, Mr. Producer, Prime Minister Modi has endorsed President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu's efforts for peace in the Middle East. We welcome President Trump. This is via Truth Social and the Prime Minister's account. We welcome President Trump's announcement of a comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict. It provides a viable pathway to long-term and sustainable peace, security, and development for the Palestinian and Israeli people, as also for the larger West Asian region. We hope that all concerned will come together behind President Trump's initiatives and support this effort to end the conflict and secure peace. And President Trump tagged on that truth by Prime Minister Modi at Real Donald Trump. So exciting to see world leaders talk about this as President Trump helped the Prime Minister and leadership in Pakistan to come to terms and peace in what could have been a nuclear war, because Pakistan and India have been rivals and enemies for almost the whole of civilization, and they being brought together on trade terms and negotiations with the help of President Trump. So always good to see that, as this is the Schumer shutdown. No question about that. From House leadership and Senate leadership on the Republican side today, it was made very clear this was a clean CR with 7 weeks to fund the government. Democrats have chosen to go in the opposite direction. Very sad to see that they would rather put illegal aliens first, that they would not negotiate in good faith, as we go to Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt and the Vice President of the United States.
Packed house here today, and I have a very special guest with us, the Vice President of the United States. He'll deliver some remarks and take some questions. First, I just want to share remarks of my own. Democrats in Congress have officially shut down the United States government. House Republicans passed a nonpartisan, clean piece of legislation to extend current government funding until November 21st. But nearly every single Democrat senator voted against this bill. To be clear, this was the exact same bill that Democrats approved 6 short months ago in March, just adjusted for inflation. This is the same kind of clean funding bill that Democrats passed 13 separate times when they held the majority during Joe Biden's administration. So the American people woke up this morning and asked the obvious question: why is the government shut down right now? The answer is pure partisan politics being played by the Democrat Party. The Democrats shut down the government because President Trump and the Republicans will not force American taxpayers to pay for free health care for illegal aliens. America is $37 trillion in debt. We cannot afford to provide taxpayer-funded free health care to illegals who broke the law to enter our country. To put this all into perspective, the Democrats refused to keep the government open over health care to illegal aliens and now have jeopardized critical health care programs for American citizens instead. The Women, Infants, and Children program, community health center funding, Medicare treatment options, and other health programs are now all at risk because of the Democrats rejecting the clean CR. The most vulnerable in our country are being punished because the Democrats want to prioritize illegals over American citizens. And if Democrats actually cared about health care, they would applaud the actions taken by President Trump just yesterday in the Oval Office. He took a bold and massively popular action to improve our healthcare system. He announced the first agreement with a major pharmaceutical company, Pfizer, to lower drug costs for Americans. This is a historical achievement long sought by past Democrat presidents that only President Trump was able to get done. Also yesterday, while the Democrats were whining about health care for illegal aliens, President Trump signed a powerful executive order to supercharge American AI innovation and unlock cures for pediatric cancer patients in the United States. While President Trump took action to lower drug prices and improve the lives and the care of American children with cancer, again, Democrats are fighting to give health care benefits to illegal aliens. The Trump administration is fully committed to lowering healthcare costs and advancing policies that will save American lives. But right now, we need to keep the government open and funded. And individuals and organizations across the political spectrum, across the country, agree with the Trump administration and Republicans. The labor union leader, the Teamsters, Sean O'Brien, sent a very blunt message to Democrats over their destructive antics. He said American workers are not bargaining chips. Senators need to stop screwing around and pass the House-passed clean short-term funding bill. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the world's largest business organization, called to immediately pass the Republican clean CR, saying, quote, shutdowns are harmful to the economy, the American people, and our national security. And even Democrat Senators Cortez Masto and Fetterman acknowledged that their party is betraying the American people with this costly and chaotic Democrat shutdown. Enough is enough. Democrats need to stop sabotaging our country and holding the American people hostage in the country. Democrats need to do their jobs. The American people want the government reopened, and this is proven in a New York Times poll showing that 2 in 3 Americans say the government should not be shut down by the Democrats, even if their absurd demands are not met. The president and Republicans are working very hard to reopen the federal government. The vice president here has been crucial in this effort. We encourage all Americans across the country, call your Democrat senators and encourage them to reopen the government. That's what President Trump and the vice president want to do. And with that, I will turn it over to our great vice president, J.D. Vance.
Great. Well, thank you, Karoline, and good afternoon to everybody, and good afternoon to everybody who's watching at home. It's a tough act to follow, but let me just say a few things, and then I'll take a few questions. Number one, Democrats say that they care a lot about lowering health care costs, and yet when the president took historic action to work with the drug companies to lower prescription drug prices, the Democrats did nothing to help us. In fact, we would have loved to have the Democrats helping us, but they didn't. They talk about doing something. They don't actually do the hard work of making it happen. What they have done instead is to shut down the government because we won't give billions of dollars to health care funding for illegal aliens. That is what has actually happened. To the American people who are watching, the reason your government is shut down at this very minute is because, despite the fact that the overwhelming majority of congressional Republicans and even a few moderate Democrats supported opening the government, the Chuck Schumer AOC wing of the Democratic Party shut down the government because they said to us, we will open the government, but only if you give billions of dollars of funding for health care for illegal aliens. That's a ridiculous proposition. Let me say two other quick things, and then again, I'll take some questions. Number one, we all understand that Democrats and Republicans have policy disagreements. The Democrats want to do things. Look, when Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries were in here a couple of days ago, they made some suggestions that the president was more than happy to say, yes, let's sit down and talk about how we can solve the health care crisis that we inherited from the Biden administration. But it's one thing to say that we should solve the health care crisis for Americans. It's another thing to say that we're going to shut down the government unless we give the Democrats every single thing that they want, which, as Karoline says, says includes giving billions of dollars of taxpayer funding for health care for illegal migrants. That's ridiculous. You don't have policy disagreements that serve as the basis for a government shutdown. Let's have the conversation about how to fix American health care, about how to make health care more accessible. As the president showed, he's more than willing to act on behalf of the American people for this very reason. What you don't do is say, unless you do exactly what we want to do as congressional Democrats, we're taking a hostage. And the hostage, it turns out, is critical, essential services that the American people need. Karoline talked about some of it. Let me talk about some more. Our troops are not getting paid starting today because of the Chuck Schumer wing of the Democratic Party. We have people who require food assistance, low-income Americans who require food assistance, who will not get it unless we reopen the government, thanks to Chuck Schumer and his wing of the Democratic Party. We have flood insurance as we start hurricane season in the southeastern part of our country. That flood insurance is going to disappear because of Chuck Schumer and the far left of the Democratic Party. We need to reopen the government. Let's fix America's problems. Let's work together to solve them. But let's reopen the government before we have our negotiation about health care policy. That's what the American people demand, and that's certainly what the President of the United States wants. Let me make one final point. I think a lot of Americans are asking themselves, why did this happen? Why did the Democrats shut down the government despite, as Karoline said, voting on the exact same piece of legislation 6 months ago? And there are a lot of different spins that we can put on it, a lot of different answers that we could give, all of them true. One answer I already gave is that they want to give health care benefits to illegal aliens. That is true. They gave us legislative text that would have undone us cutting off health care benefits for illegal aliens. That's one of the things that they asked for. But the reality here, and let's be honest about the politics, is that Chuck Schumer is terrified she's going to get a primary challenge from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The reason why the American people's government is shut down is because Chuck Schumer is listening to the far left radicals in his own party because he's terrified of a primary challenge. So I'd invite Chuck Schumer to join the moderate Democrats and 52 Senate Republicans, do the right thing, open up the people's government, and then let's fix health care policy for the American people. Questions?
Mr. Vice President.
That's a lot. Matt Boyle.
Okay. Mr. Vice President, there's two key Democrat lies I would like to get your take on and see if you can address. The first is that you're seeing a number of top Democrat leaders, from Kamala Harris to Chuck Schumer to Hakeem Jeffries, claim that it is a Republican shutdown caused by Trump. The second is that they're out there now claiming that they don't want to give health care to illegal aliens. Can you address both of those lies from the Democrat Party?
Yeah, so on the point that it's a Republican shutdown, look, it's obviously a Democratic shutdown. Just look at the vote totals in the House, look at the vote totals in the Senate, and look at the President of the United States' own action and conduct throughout this crisis. Nearly every single House Republican voted to open the government, Matt. Nearly every single Senate Republican voted to open the government last night. And even to their credit, a few moderate Democrats voted to open the government. That's not a Republican shutdown when nearly every single Senate Democrat votes to shut it down and every Republican voted to open it up. It's just obviously not true. Now, you can disagree about a number of things, but you can't disagree about the obvious fact that Republicans voted to open the government. The president stands ready to sign that opening of the government. We just need a few more Democrats to join us in that effort to open the government. Your final question about illegal alien benefits. Look, the text is very clear, and I even saw, I think it was George Stephanopoulos in an interview with Mike Johnson, did a fact check that was totally rooted in baseless claims. It was basically Democrat propaganda. If you look at the legislative text that they gave us, they tried to turn on two separate provisions that would give health care benefits to illegal aliens. Number one, if you're an American citizen, you've been to a hospital in the last few years, you probably noticed that wait times are especially large, and very often somebody who's there in the emergency room waiting is an illegal alien, very often a person who can't even speak English. Why do those people get health care benefits at hospitals paid for by American citizens? The answer is a decision made by the Biden administration that the Trump administration, working with congressional Republicans, undid. We turned off that money spigot to health care funding for illegal aliens. The Democrats, in their legislative text, want to turn it back on. That's one thing. The second thing, Matt, is we all know that there are various ways in which the Biden administration waved away illegal immigration status. They gave parolees, they gave asylum claims to people who weren't really claiming asylum. And when they waved the magic wand of amnesty, giving millions of people legal status even though they were in the country illegally, they also gave those people access to health care benefits. So what the Democrats are engaging in is a sleight of hand. They're saying, no. Those weren't illegal aliens who were getting health care benefits, even though everybody, knows they were in the country illegally. It's a lie told by the Democrats that they're not trying to give health care benefits to illegal aliens. It's a lie that is obviously untrue if you just look at the text that they gave us. And all you have to do is understand that this is about who benefits. We think the American people's government ought to benefit American citizens. The Democrats are willing to shut it down to benefit illegal aliens. The contrast couldn't be more clear. Peter.
Thank you, Vice President Vance. The big holdup is, of course, that you guys say illegal immigrants are getting taxpayer-funded health care. Democrats say you're lying. That makes it feel like it could be a really long shutdown. Is this going to be a long shutdown?
I don't know. I can't predict what congressional Democrats are going to do, Peter, but I actually don't think it's going to be that long of a shutdown. This is a pure guess from the Vice President of the United States because I think you already saw some evidence that moderate Democrats are cracking a little bit. They understand the fundamental illogic of this. Look, for years, every single one of us, we can remember Barack Obama on the White House lawn. We can remember Chuck Schumer. We can remember, Nancy Pelosi for years. In Chuck Schumer's case, for literally decades, we've heard them say, you don't shut the government down over a policy disagreement. Okay, Republicans think this thing about health care, that thing about health care. Democrats think this thing about immigration. Republicans disagree. Whatever those disagreements are, you don't shut down the government over it. For the first time since the Democrats have been in politics, they're now saying that unless we get every policy item that we demand, we're going to shut down the people's government. They're trying to take a hostage, and we're not going to let them.
And the administration announced today that $18 billion bound for New York transportation projects is going to be frozen so it can't go to DEI programs there. But the timing of this, does announcing that today mean that you guys are going to squeeze Chuck Schumer's home state until he blinks?
Look, I haven't talked to Russ about this morning, but look, I'm sure that Russ is heartbroken about the fact that he's unable to give certain things to certain constituencies. We want to do everything that we can to help the American people, but when the Democrats shut down the government, we have to actually do a little triage to make sure the most critical and most essential services are provided. The government does a lot of things. Of course, Republicans think that the federal government probably does too much, but there are a lot of critical things the federal government does that absolutely all of us would agree need to do. Our troops need to get paid. Our air traffic controllers need to make sure that people are flying safely and on time. We need low-income people to be able to access the food services that are provided by the federal government. There are critical things that need to be saved. We're going to do everything that we can over the coming weeks, if the shutdown lasts that long, to ensure that people get the essential services that they need, despite the fact that Chuck Schumer has shut down the federal government. It's not going to be perfect because we are in a government shutdown. We are going to have to lay some people off if the shutdown continues. We don't like that. We don't necessarily want to do it, but we're going to do what we have to keep the American people's essential services continuing to run.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, and thank you for being here. Yesterday, President Trump said, as a result of the shutdown, we'll be laying off a lot of people that are going to be very affected, and the Democrats, they are going to be Democrats. Has the administration asked agencies to target federal workers who they believe to be Democrats in these reductions of forces?
We're not targeting federal agencies based on politics. We're targeting the people's government so that as much as possible of the essential services can continue to function. That is the question the president has asked the entire government, is fundamentally, okay, we're in a shutdown. That causes some problems. The troops aren't getting paid. There's nothing that we can do about that while the government is shut down. But there are essential services that we want to make sure as much as possible they still continue to function. That is the principle that's driving us forward during this shutdown. It's going to continue to be the principle that drives us forward. But let's be honest. If this thing drags on for another few days or, God forbid, another few weeks, we are going to have to lay people off. We're going to have to save money in some places so the essential services don't get turned off in other places. That is the reality of the government shutdown that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have foisted upon the administration.
So what did he mean by they're going to be Democrats? He said they're going to be Democrats.
You've laid out a lot of the pain and problems that would come with a Democratic shutdown, and yet in the Oval Office yesterday, the president said that a lot of good could come from a shutdown. So square that circle. Which is it, a Democratic-caused crisis or a Republican opportunity for reform?
Well, I think all the president is saying, Phil, is that he wants to make sure the American people's government functions as well as it can, despite the fact that we're in a shutdown. We're going to have to make things work. And that means that we're going to have to triage some certain things. That means certain people are going to have to get laid off. And we're going to try to make sure that the American people suffer as little as possible from this shutdown. That's what the president is saying, is that, yes, this is a bad thing. Obviously, the president is trying to reopen the government, but we're going to make things work as well as we possibly can, given the constraints that we have.
And then on those policy differences for the discussion and the negotiations to come later, during the Biden administration, Democrats twice voted to expand these Affordable Care Act tax credits. But those were supposed to be temporary, and they were slated to expire at the end of the year. As you sort of crack the door open to negotiation at a later date, would the party that ran on defunding Obamacare really negotiate about potentially expanding Obamacare?
Well, Phil, what we've said to the Democrats is that we're willing to have a conversation about how to ensure that Americans continue to have access to health care. And frankly, they should have access to better health care at a lower cost. We inherited a mess of a health care system from the Biden administration. It's why the president has worked so hard on the most favored nation status for prescription drugs. It's why we care so much about lowering the cost of prescriptions and why we're doing everything else. We're willing to have that conversation. But I think it's important to bracket the health care policy conversation because it's separate from the government shutdown. We think that we can open the government and then have the conversation about what best healthcare policy to fit the needs of the American people. That's all we're trying to do. That's all we're trying to accomplish. We've got to reopen the government first. Now, Karoline, I don't know how you do this, how you actually choose people, because I don't know 90% of the names in here. Is it just who's the best dressed? Okay, I really like your shirt. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You are president of the Senate. Can you talk about what you're doing, what the administration is doing to try to get other Senate Democrats to vote to open the government?
Yeah, we're talking to a number of our colleagues, Democratic and Republican, in the Senate. I talked to a number of them last night. The president, of course, is talking to them as well. I think there really are two categories of demands that I've seen privately from congressional Democrats. I think on the one hand, those who are negotiating in good faith are saying, look, we just want to make sure that we're able to have a conversation with the administration about some of the critical needs that we see that need to get fixed over the next few months. We recognize it's kind of absurd, and a lot of them will admit in private that it's kind of absurd to shut down the people's government over these disagreements, but just agree to negotiate with us in good faith on these issues. And of course, we're having that conversation with them. Then there's another category, people who say, give us everything we want or we're going to keep the government shut down. We just write those people off because they're not negotiating in good faith. And frankly, we don't need them. We've already got 3 more Democrats last night than I thought we would get. And I think it's because they recognize the illogic of the position of taking the entire American economy hostage because they don't get their policy priorities. So 3 moderate Democrats joined 52 Republicans last night. We need 5 more in order to reopen the government. And that's really where we're going to focus, is how to get those 5 additional Democrats.
Thanks, Mr. Vice President. First, 2 questions. Are there plans to meet Democratic leaders again in the coming days, or are you planning on plucking off senators one by one?
So that's the whole question?
No, I got a second question.
Okay, go ahead and ask the second question.
So the president's been posting some images of Leader Jeffries and Senator Schumer.
I saw.
Recently. You've said that you're interested in good faith negotiations with these leaders, but what message does that send? Is it helpful to post pictures of Leader Jeffries in a sombrero if you're trying to have good faith talks with him?
Oh, I think it's funny. The president's joking, and we're having a good time. You can negotiate in good faith while also poking a little bit of fun at some of the absurdities of the Democrats' positions, and even, poking some fun at the absurdity of the Democrats themselves. I mean, I'll tell Hakeem Jeffries right now, I make this solemn promise to you that if you help us reopen the government, the sombrero memes will stop. And I've talked to the President of the United States about that. Now, to your first question, are we negotiating one-on-one? Are we negotiating in groups? Look, I will go to the U.S. Capitol right now and meet with Chuck Schumer or any Senate Democrat if it helps us reopen the government. Most of the conversations, in my experience at least, have been one-off. We're also, of course, relying on some of our Senate Republican colleagues who have good relationships across the aisle. We're going to do whatever we have to do is the answer. And I think it's tough to predict what shape this negotiation is going to take over the next few months. But I feel good about the fact that Democrats already realize privately the fundamental irrationality of their position. I hope that they're going to publicly acknowledge it and reopen the government. The guy in the back, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. You responded to a post on X of Chuck Schumer on the House floor back in 1996, railing against illegal immigrants receiving taxpayer-funded benefits. You said Chuck Schumer once recognized that it was disastrous to give illegal aliens rewards for breaking the law. Now he wants to shut down the government unless we reward illegal aliens for breaking the law. Why has Chuck Schumer changed his stance?
You know, that's a good question. Actually, it's a very tough question. Asking me to get in the head of Chuck Schumer is not a place I particularly want to be, but my basic read on it is that the entire Democratic Party, the political leadership, not every Democrat nationwide, but the political leadership of their party has got it into their heads that the only way to be compassionate is to be compassionate to illegal aliens rather than American citizens. If you go back to what Bill Clinton was saying, even Barack Obama in some cases, what he was saying about illegal immigration 10, 15, 20 years ago, you would put them on the MAGA right based purely on their rhetoric around illegal immigration. So I don't know why they've gone so far to the left. I think it's bad for the country. I think it's bad for them politically. But our principle, all I can do is speak for the president that I serve and the country, the administration that I serve right now. We believe that the American people's government exists for the American people. That means the people who have the legal right to be here, and that's why we're fighting to reopen the government. And unfortunately, the Democrats are fighting to shut it down for the benefit of illegal aliens. And I'll take a couple more, and then I'll let Karoline. I'll go back to my day job so Karoline can go back to hers. All right. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Just going back to the sombrero. You said that the president is joking, but Hakeem Jeffries says that these memes were racist. What's your response to that? And just if I may briefly go off topic, Secretary Hegseth yesterday made an edict about no more beardos in the military. Just wondered what.
Sorry, what did he say?
No more beardos. Beards. Oh, sorry, it's my accent. Just wondered your response to that.
I didn't see that particular comment. I thought Pete gave a hell of a speech, and a speech that really is just oriented around returning the American military to the very high standards that it has had for virtually its entire history until Joe Biden came along and decided to lower standards. I think it was bad for our military, and it was bad for our troops. When I was a young United States Marine, I did not have a beard. I am now the vice president, so I get to do what I want to do. But I think Pete's trying to re-implement high standards, and that's a very good thing. On the sombrero thing, I mean, Hakeem Jeffries said it was racist, and I know that he said that, and I honestly don't even know what that means. Like, is he a Mexican American that is offended by having a sombrero meme? I mean, I saw one of the major TV stations put the meme up and then say, this is AI generated. And he had like the curly animated mustache too. It's like, do you really not realize the American people recognize that he did not actually come to the White House wearing a sombrero and a black curly animation mustache? Like, give the country a little bit of credit. We're all trying to do a very important job for the American people. The President of the United States likes to have a little bit of fun when he's doing it, and I think that's okay. I'll take one more question.
Mr. Vice President, in every previous shutdown, workers have been furloughed, not laid off. So why does the president want to fire some workers and not just furlough them? Why is this shutdown any different?
Well, first of all, we haven't made any final decisions about what we're going to do with certain workers. What we're saying is that we might have to take extraordinary steps, especially the longer this goes on. We're going to have to take extraordinary measures to ensure the people's government operates, again, not perfectly, because it's not going to operate perfectly in the midst of a shutdown, but operate as well as it possibly can. And I think that the Democrats, if they're so worried about the effect this is having on the American people, and they should be, what they should do is reopen the government, not complain about how we respond to the fact that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have shut down the government in the first place. Thank you all.
Caroline. He's going to target some benefits, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you.
Should
See you
Americans
guys.
prepare for their benefits to be cut as well?
All right, guys. Well, let's let the fun continue. The Vice President's a very busy man, and I'm happy to take some more questions. I know there's more news today. Aside from the shutdown, we can focus on the shutdown if you want, but let's go ahead. Kate, why don't you start?
The president talked about doing things that he said were irreversible during the shutdown, cutting vast numbers of people, he said, and cutting programs. Can you specify what exactly he was referring to, what's on the table and what's going to be cut?
Look, I think the Vice President just referred to this in some of the answers that he gave regarding the layoffs. There are unfortunate consequences to a government shutdown, and the federal government is not receiving any cash at the moment, and so the Office of Management and Budget has been tasked with looking over the receipts and looking over the budget of the entire federal bureaucracy, and as the Vice President said, determining what needs to continue to go out the door and what can we continue to keep running, and what unfortunately is going to have to come to an end. So those decisions are being made, and unfortunately layoffs are very likely, as the Vice President just said, going to be a part of that.
And has the White House had any direct response from Hamas from the peace proposal that was laid out? The president said he would give 3 or 4 days, but is there a hard deadline now, or what are the next steps here?
I will reiterate what the President of the United States said, 3 or 4 days, and I can tell you that there are some very sensitive discussions that are taking place, but I certainly don't want to get ahead of any announcement at this podium. I'm going to let Special Envoy Witkoff and the President of the United States handle that.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions. First of all, following up on that, the president said yesterday, I believe, within 3 or 4 days he wanted to hear an answer from Hamas. Is he still sticking by that timeline?
Yes, as I just confirmed.
And then second question is a comment that's gotten a lot of global attention. Senator Dick Durbin, he was set to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Catholic Church. He's since declined accepting it because there has been some controversy. Pope Leo commented on this, and he said that someone who says I'm against abortion, but I'm in agreement with the inhumane treatment of immigrants in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life. You've been very open about your Catholic faith. How do you respond to that?
I would reject there is inhumane treatment of illegal immigrants in the United States under this administration. There was, however, significant inhumane treatment of illegal immigrants in the previous administration as they were being trafficked and raped and beaten, and in many cases killed, over our United States southern border. You also look at the inhumane treatment at the hands of some of these illegal immigrants that took place under the previous administration as well. Laken Riley comes to mind, a beautiful American citizen who was killed at the hands of an illegal immigrant. So this administration is trying to enforce our nation's laws in the most humane way possible, and we're upholding the law, and we're doing that on behalf of the people of our country who live here.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. What is the level of concern that the administration has regarding a protracted government shutdown in terms of its impact on the U.S. economy and also its impact on small businesses as well?
Well, look, this government shutdown is no doubt going to impact everyday Americans, and it is the fault of the Democrats that we are in this position. And I know I relayed some programs that will be impacted, the Vice President did as well, but I just want to make sure the American public understand what the Democrats have done to our government and our country. 1.3 million active duty troops will work now without pay. Critical food assistance for low-income women, infants, and children will now lapse. No new mothers or children are allowed to join this critical program because of the Democrats' decision to shut down the government. Telehealth services for seniors and in-home treatment options for Medicare patients will now come to an end. Nearly 50,000 members of the United States Coast Guard are going to have to work unpaid. Over 13,000 air traffic controllers will work without pay, as well as TSA agents, which will very likely create flight disruptions. And pay will now stop for over 150,000 federal law enforcement officers. These are not just numbers and statistics. These are real Americans who have families at home. And I saw some Democrat members today saying they're still going to accept their paychecks because they have 3 kids at home and they have mouths to feed. Well, so do these federal workers who those same Democrats just voted to shut down the government and turn off their pay. And we believe that's very unfair, and it's why the administration wants to see the government reopened.
GDP growth fell by about 0.5 percentage point during the last government shutdown during the president's first term. Are you expecting a similar type of impact on GDP growth related to this potential protracted government shutdown?
Well, look, I think it's dependent upon how long this shutdown continues. So it's dependent on how long it takes Democrats to muster up the coverage, 5 of them, to vote in the best interest of our country, our citizens, and our economy. Eamon.
Thank you, Caroline. Yesterday, your administration took a 5% stake in Lithium Americas and a stake in the mine that they're working on, and you've taken stakes in other companies and revenue streams from other companies. Can you articulate the broader principle here? When does the administration see it as appropriate to demand equity stakes or revenue streams from American companies? And what other companies are you going to be demanding those from?
Well, look, this is a creative solution by the President of the United States to tackle our nation's crippling debt crisis. As I said earlier, we are $37 trillion trillion with a T, in debt. And not only is the president effectively utilizing tariffs to bring in massive amounts of revenue, and there's billions of dollars coming in every month. I know you know that even because you cover it on CNBC quite well. So the president is focused on how can the United States government make more money? How can we make our country wealthy and rich again? And cutting some of these unique creative deals with companies around the world and here at home is just one way the president is seeking to do that. And I know the Department of Energy just announced this new deal. It's another great deal for the American people and our government. Reagan.
And on Lisa Cook,
Sure, go ahead.
Lisa Cook,
Yeah.
the Supreme Court said today that she's going to be allowed to stay at the Federal Reserve Board until oral arguments in January. Does the president have any personal reaction to that? This has been something he's been very intent on.
Look, we have respect for the Supreme Court, but they're going to hear the actual case and make a determination on the legal argument in January. And we look forward to that because we maintain that she was fired well within the president's legal authority to do so. She was removed from the board, and we look forward to that case being fully played out at the Supreme Court. Reagan.
Caroline, I have one for you on EJ Antoni and one on the shutdown.
Sure.
CNN reported that Collins and Murkowski declined to meet with EJ Antoni, raising concerns that his nomination was in trouble. I'm wondering what message Collins and Murkowski are sending to the White House by not meeting with one of the president's nominees.
Well, look, EJ Antoni remains a great ally of the president and our team. It became clear, unfortunately, that he was not going to have the votes, and so we will be announcing a replacement nominee very soon.
And on the shutdown, I'm just wondering how soon you could see cuts to the federal workplace, and if there's a specific agency that will experience the most cuts or be focused.
Unfortunately, because the Democrats shut down the government, the president has directed his cabinet, and the Office of Management and Budget is working with agencies across the board to identify where cuts can be made, and we believe that layoffs are imminent. They are, unfortunately, a consequence of this government shutdown. Ed.
So you talk about the layoffs being imminent. Is there a percentage then of reduction that the White House is looking for of workforce?
I don't have a specific percentage for you.
What about China, if I could? So China has not made one soybean purchase this year for the United States. I talked to a farmer yesterday who has about 1,000 acres in Iowa and says this is just killing her. Now, the president has been talking to President Xi. Could China not buying agriculture affect a possible meeting with the president? Would he not meet with Xi because China has refused to buy soybeans from the U.S.?
Look, I don't want to speak for the president and make a determination on that from this podium, but what I can tell you is that supporting America's farmers and doing what's best for them is at the top of the president's priority list, and it's at the top of the list for this administration right now. There have been several very high-level meetings on this very topic. We want to help our farmers, and we're exploring the best ways to do that, and I would anticipate there will be more to come on that very soon.
You can send a message to the Chinese president.
Look, I just shared that message. The president wants what's best for America's farmers. Sean.
Hey, Caroline.
Hi.
Two things to ask you about.
Sure.
First thing, I want to ask about this video that the president posted the other day. It was an AI deepfake of himself talking about something called med beds. What was he trying to communicate to the public there, and why did he delete it?
I think the president saw the video and posted it and then took it down. And he has the right to do that. It's his social media. He's incredibly transparent, as you all know. You hear from him directly on social media. He likes to share memes. He likes to share videos. He likes to repost things that he sees other people post on social media as well. And I think it's quite refreshing that we have a president who is so open and honest directly himself. Many a times on Truth, you are hearing directly from the President of the United States.
And second thing, how did the White House decide that it is appropriate for Jared Kushner to be working on matters that involve Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia, 3 countries that combined have given him more than $2.5 billion for his investment firm?
I think it's, frankly, despicable that you're trying to suggest that it's inappropriate for Jared Kushner, who is widely respected around the world and has great trust in relationships with these critical partners in these countries, to strike a 20-point comprehensive detailed peace plan that no other administration would ever be able to achieve. And so Jared is donating his energy and his time to our government, to the President of the United States, to secure world peace, and that is a very noble thing. And this is a peace plan that has not just been accepted by Israel, but it has been applauded by Muslim and Arab countries around the world. It has been applauded by European leaders around the world. Virtually everyone in the world is supportive of this plan that Jared Kushner offered his time to help put together alongside our special envoy Witkoff, the Vice President, the President of the United States, Secretary Rubio, and the President's entire national security team. We are very proud of that plan, and we hope Hamas will accept it because it will lead to a more peaceful and prosperous Middle East.
Two questions. One, we're talking a lot about these layoffs and hypotheticals, but Speaker Johnson earlier today said that there is a proposal from the White House that House Republicans are expected to hear this afternoon about these mass layoffs. Can you tell us what is in that proposal? What agencies, what programs, what jobs?
What he's referring to is a proposal that our Office of Management and Budget Director, Russ Vought, is going to be proposing to the House Republican Conference. He's going to kind of walk them through what this unfortunately is going to look like so they can discuss it with their constituents back home in their respective districts. So I don't want to get ahead of the Office of Management and Budget, but I'm sure you'll be hearing more about that very soon. Look, we have to put a plan in place. It would be irresponsible of us not to take a look at each and every agency and get an understanding of what we're going to have to do moving forward to do the best we can in the midst of this government shutdown.
Thanks, Caroline. Just on that point, though, Russ Vought told House members, according to our notice reporting, that RIFs would happen in 2 days. Already, we know that some have been sitting out from the U.S. Patent Office. So I wonder, one, this administration continues to say that they don't want to lay people off, but obviously there is a plan to lay people off. So what is your message to those people who are getting laid off? And then if the government reopens, will those RIFs reverse? Are they not permanent if the government reopens, specifically if it reopens pretty quickly?
Well, sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do, and it's because the Democrats have put us into this position. If the Democrats did not vote to shut down the government, we would not be standing up here talking about layoffs today. We'd be talking about all the other news stories going on in the world in our country. We'd be talking about all of the great things that this administration is doing to uplift Americans across the country. But unfortunately, the Vice President of the United States and I have to come out here today to talk about a government shutdown that the Democrats put us in this position.
And the second question,
Thanks, Caroline. I'm just trying to clarify the timing of these potential layoffs to federal workers. You said imminent. The Vice President seemed to say in a couple of days. It looks like Russ Vought maybe said in 2 days. When would these layoffs begin?
2 days, imminent, very soon. You will expect more announcements right now.
Is it just unclear, or are you waiting?
It's not unclear. All of those things are very synonymous with one another. These RIFs are unfortunately going to happen very soon.
And it'll definitely
Caroline, we've been talking about the Affordable Care Act, enhanced premium tax credits, and sort of the politics of it all, right? But this is a very real, tangible impact that American people will feel. The Kaiser Family Foundation says that with the ACA enhanced premium tax credits, without them, premiums will go up 114% on average. 19 million of the 24 million people who rely on the coverage are in states that President Trump won. Is he concerned what will happen to those families if this tax credit expires? And aside from the shutdown, is there a plan to keep those premiums down?
Look, as the Vice President just said, we are more than happy to have this conversation. The President and the Vice President and this team are more than happy to have that conversation with Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill. But it cannot happen right now. Right now, we need to reopen the United States federal government because people are going without pay. You have thousands of federal workers who have to show up to work and not get paid, and that's an unfortunate situation the Democrats have put us in. Then we can discuss this very important issue of health care that the president absolutely wants to fix. As I mentioned yesterday, he took... But those premiums do not expire until the end of the year. It's October 1st right now. And so we have a few months to have that conversation. And it's irresponsible of the Democrat Party to try to convince the American people that that conversation has to happen right now. No, what needs to happen right now is the reopening of the United States federal government. And then this administration will be happy to work with Democrats in good faith to come to a policy determination. But one red line the government has already made clear, this administration has already made clear, this administration is never going to support taxpayer-funded benefits going to illegal aliens. And we think it's despicable that that was one of the proposals that Democrats put in their funding proposal and their CR. The Republican CR was a clean CR that would keep the government open. Democrats have voted for it 13 times in the past. The Democrats put this poison pill in there, this partisan pill. Why? Because they are beholden to the far left radicals in their party. And you already see 3 moderate Democrats having the courage to say no. We need to keep the government open, and then we can have these conversations about health care. Mary.
Caroline, I just want to circle back to something the Vice President said about Ocasio-Cortez. I'm actually surprised it didn't come up sooner. So if Schumer is catering to the demands of Ocasio-Cortez, can you share whether the White House views this as cracks in Schumer's leadership, and would the Vice President be open to meeting with someone like her if she is assuming this role in the Democratic Party?
I'll let the Vice President speak on that himself. I think that certainly Senator Schumer was not expecting 3 moderates to break with him last night. In fact, last night you heard Senator Schumer say he can't guarantee that he will be able to hold his caucus together. And so again, we encourage Democrats to have the courage to do the right thing, do what you have done 13 times previously, and vote for this clean continuing resolution to keep the government funded. As for what the Trump administration and President Trump is going to do, we'll continue to be very public that we want the government to be open, and as the Vice President said, we'll continue to work in good faith with anyone on Capitol Hill who wants to do right by the American people. Thank you all so much. We'll see you later.
Thank you. Thank you.
Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt and the Vice President J.D. Vance, a surprise guest this afternoon regarding questions on the specific shutdown. So we heard from the Vice President there and the superstar Karoline Leavitt, as President puts it, that they are working overtime for the American people, and it's time that Democrats join in and reopen this government because, to Karoline's point, these are real working families, real Americans, and 150 federal agents who are putting their lives on the line to protect the American people. Big news out of Florida with cancer research. Last week, the state just announced its investment, $60 million specifically into cancer research. What makes this different is they're focusing on affordable, life-saving medications like ivermectin and mebendazole, which you can now get for 25% off. In addition to code RSBN 10, RSBN 10, what we've been running for the last couple of weeks or so. Scan that QR code there now. For no red tape, no bureaucracy, just an online pharmacy fighting for you, the right to try and to make America healthy again. It's allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Many of these medications, in fact, winning Nobel Peace Prizes over the course of 40 to 50 years. The problem is Big Pharma doesn't want to talk about them because they don't make a big profit from generics. That's where All Family Pharmacy comes in at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Code RSBN 10, RSBN 10 for 10% off now. Over 200 essential medications, also emergency medical kits that could save your life in times of need and trouble. The pharmacy you can count on. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. We'd like to also thank Monetary Gold. Grab your complimentary presidential gold guide now for wealth security preservation. Call today. Don't delay. It's 888-617-7994. Ask how to eliminate your IRA fees permanently for life. RSBNforthegold.com. No obligation, just options in that presidential gold guide to find where you can receive hot commodities, gold and silver, which have stood the test of time in 5,000 years of human history. Monetary Gold, the go-to, in fact, as Robert Kiyosaki, friend of President Trump and author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, aptly and in a very good way describing that 2 banks failed in 2025. So where does that leave you with $37 trillion in debt? Trillion with a T, as Karoline Leavitt mentioned during that press conference. Gold and silver is the option to diversify. Wealth security preservation, it is Monetary Gold, RSBN, forthegold.com. Thank you for your sponsorship on the right side of history. And we will stay tuned on this afternoon in case there's any breaking news, including the Senate gaveling in to see if Chuck Schumer and Senate leadership changes its mind on the Democrat side. But as the vice president put it, the extreme wings of his party and the AOC influence seemingly changing the direction of the country. Why do they want to fund illegal aliens with $1.5 trillion? Why can't they set the CR aside, a clean one, to keep the government open while continuing discussions on this very topic? The vice president said, I'll go down to the Capitol right now and meet with Senate and House leadership, as they were invited to the White House on Monday to discuss these very issues. Well, we'll see you very soon. In case there's anything across the channels that changes that, I'm Robert McNeely. For all of my colleagues here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, God bless you. Have a wonderful afternoon and go outside. Enjoy that beautiful weather. We'll see you on the other side.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.